Welcome everybody to this July meeting of Yarra City Council. Yarra City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Wurrung people as traditional owners and true sovereigns of the land now known as Yarra. We acknowledge their creative spirit Bunjil, their ancestors and their elders. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of the Wurundjeri Wurrung who have never ceded sovereignty and retain the strong connections to family, clan and country despite the impacts of European invasion. We also acknowledge the significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations here today and to their elders past, present and future. We have all councillors in attendance with the exception of Councillor Crossland, who's sick, and Councillor Wade, who's on leave of absence. I think she's back early next week. We've got one announcement. Some members of the audience have asked me to acknowledge the passing of Irish New Zealander Sam Neill, who in 2006 made the movie Irresistible in Abbotsford and has had a historic connection to the city of Yarra. I think all people here from all over the world are very saddened by his death in the last 48 hours. I'd just like to acknowledge that. Councillors, I'm going to ask each of you to make a conflict of interest declaration. You may respond, I do, to the following question. Do you declare that you've familiarised yourself with the matters being presented to this meeting and that you do not have a conflict of interest? I'll go through everybody in alphabetical order. Councillor Aston.
I do.
Councillor Davies.
I do.
Councillor Gomez.
I do.
Councillor Harrison.
I do.
Councillor Ho.
I do.
Councillor McKenzie.
I do.
And I do. The next thing is the confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting, the June meeting, the 9th of June. You were all there at Fitzroy Town Hall. Would anyone who was there like to move the minutes? Councillor Ho, thank you for that. Seconder, Deputy Mayor Harrison. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is passed unanimously. We'll now move on to question time. So I'm going to go with those people who have registered first in the order that they've registered, and then I'll ask if there's anyone who's not registered who wants to ask a question. So first up, I've got Luke James. Welcome, Luke. So just press that button and you've got 3 minutes to ask your question. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for this opportunity. So picture this. You're driving home in the evening with a 5-year-old child and sometimes also an 11-year-old asleep in the back seat of your car. You might also have a boot full of weekly shopping. You turn into your street and your heart sinks as you see no car parking spaces anywhere. You might be lucky and find one well down the street. Otherwise, you might have to double park, carry in the sleeping child, and then turn onto an adjoining street to look for spaces. Walking back from your car, you notice that many of the cars parked near your house don't have a parking permit, but of course they don't need to, because parking restrictions on your street ended at 7 p.m. and only on Monday to Friday. Otherwise, it's a free-for-all. So my question, in regard to the application for a change to parking restrictions for Keele Street, Collingwood, that I submitted on 11th of May 2026 with the support of three other households in our street, and considering my family and I continue to experience extreme parking difficulty in the vicinity of our home in the evening, and the fact that I provided evidence the parking occupancy averaged 93% for a week, which under the City of Yarra parking restrictions guidelines should lead to an automatic change in restrictions, will Council change the parking restrictions to introduce permit parking as requested? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Luke. Mary Osmond, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, and thank you, Luke, for your question. The application for a review of parking restrictions and a review of permit parking for Keele Street is currently being considered by the Parking Management Unit. We've got an occupancy survey for Keele Street that will be completed by the 24th of July, and once that's completed, officers will be able to provide you with further advice regarding the outcome and the next steps. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Luke. The next person is, let me have a look, Herschel Landis.
Thank you. Mayor, my question relates to the Age published a discussion about the transparency of donations to local government. Also created an editorial. Many councillors elected in 2024 campaign on values of honesty, transparency and accountability, and those values I strongly support. In my view, the use of an incorporated association to collect, manage and distribute campaign donations in local government elections raises an important governance issue, and I make no allegation that any laws were broken. Rather, I question whether the current legislative framework provides the level of transparency that the community is entitled to expect. Public records show that the campaign funds were raised and distributed through an incorporated association whose treasurer and secretary subsequently became councillors. Those office bearers would ordinarily have responsibility for the association's financial administration, including knowledge of donor identities and the management of campaign funds. However, the public has no way of knowing how decisions about the allocation of those funds were made, whether all candidates had access to the same information, or how remaining funds were dealt with. My concern is not that campaign funding necessarily influenced any council decision. There is no evidence before me that it did. My concern is that the present framework leaves the public unable to determine whether financial relationships created during an election campaign could later give rise to actual or perceived obligations between elected representatives. Good governance should not require the public to speculate. Political alliances are a normal part of democracy, I get that. Financial relationships between candidates are different. The law should ensure that voters can see who is funding campaigns, who controls those funds and how are they being distributed. So my question is, will Council write to the Minister of Local Government seeking a review of Victoria's local government electoral funding laws to require any incorporated association or third-party organisation involved in funding council election campaigns to comply with the same disclosure and transparency obligations as candidates and political parties, including the public disclosure of significant donors, so that the community can have confidence that councillors exercise their statutory responsibilities independently and solely in the best interests of the municipal community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landis. I think I'll, I'll take that question. For those of you who didn't understand it, I'll translate. We used to have a Green Council. We no longer have a Green Council. We have an independent dominated council. Not all the independents were part of Yarra for All, which is an incorporated association, but most who were elected were. And we raised money. We never got a cent from a trade union. We never got a cent from a business. We never got a cent from a developer. We got loads of money, loads of money. We actually, I can show you the bank account. It was registered as an incorporated body with the relevant state government authority, and we financed candidates who wouldn't otherwise be able to finance themselves. So somebody like me, who was a cashed-up CFMU, worker on, say, for example, the Metro Tunnel, which I worked for 3 years before the election, plus I had my councillor's salary. I didn't get a cent in funding because I could fund my own campaign. And by God, did I raise a lot of money for my campaign. We outspent the Greens in my ward and smashed them in their backyard. Very proud of that. The other councillors, because the thing about councils, unfortunately, it's really, really hard if you're a single mum, if you're unemployed, if you're a public housing tenant, to stand for council, because it's not very well paid, and to run an election campaign, you need support. So we made absolutely no apologies by going out and asking our support base to donate the money. When the election was over, we closed down the association. The association was closed down not that very long ago, and as agreed in the Constitution, we donated what was left to a charity. I got a letter the other day from the United Nations. I nearly fell over. You all think I've got a big head, but I've never had a letter from the United Nations before as Mayor of Yarra. And the letter was from the United Nations to thank me because we had donated money to the United Nations refugee wing, and that money, the leftover money from what you guys, many of you in the audience, would have donated to the independents, went to the UNHCR, which I think is an amazing thing. The association is now closed, but let's be honest about it. We will be starting up Yarra for All next year because we're going to make sure that this council never goes back to the dark old days when Councillor Landis and others like that ruled the roost here. So for now, it's gone. If any of you would like a list of every single itemised donation from every single individual, just email me tomorrow and I'll send it to you. Absolutely no problem at all. If you're looking for dodgy things, this is not the place to look for it. And even Mr. Landis had to admit he's making no allegations because there are no allegations that can be made. Thank you, sir, for your question. The next person is Jeremy Lawrence.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm asking a question on behalf of Streets Alive Yarra tonight. So we understand that Council is planning to release a draft curbside and parking management strategy for community feedback early next year, which is only 6 months away. And a new strategy has enormous opportunity to make life better for residents. And if information about parking is well presented, it can help residents to compare any proposals with what they have now. For example, consider a resident who likes to invite a friend around for a cup of tea, and that friend needs a disabled car parking bay. If the draft strategy proposed to triple the number of disabled parking bays, and there was a map showing the location of the existing and proposed bays, then a resident could type in their address into the map and see how access for their friend could be improved near them. Or if the location and type of all the parking bays in Yarra was available in Council's geographical information system, it could enable a wide range of analyses. For example, the parking location dataset could be combined with the housing location dataset to generate a histogram showing how many permit spots were available within, say, 100 metres of every household in Yarra. Some would have more, some would have less. Then the draft strategy could examine the evidence to develop a target. Like, we want there to be this many parking spots, permit parking spots within 100 metres walk of any household in Yarra, and describe how that could be achieved under the strategy. So our question is Council planning to publish a map showing the location of each on-street parking bay in Yarra and the restrictions that apply to each of those bays to support an evidence-based discussion of how rules are applied across the municipality and how those rules might change as part of the upcoming curbside and parking management strategy? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Lawrence. Mary Osmond, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Jeremy, for the question. There are currently no plans to publish parking data that currently exists. Local area studies are proposed to be completed as part of the curbside and parking management strategy, which will strengthen data accuracy across the municipality around parking options. However, Council will shortly be publishing a map of accessible parking spaces that are available across the municipality, so stay tuned. Thank you.
I'm just getting a request, governance from councillors, just to turn the volume up a wee bit. Not mine, but maybe in the... Councillor Mackenzie's getting a bit older now, and her hearing is... Thank you for that. We'll move on. The next person is Shane Delphine. Welcome, Shane.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, councillors. My question tonight, over time, the climate emergency will impose significant costs on local government. We'd expect to see adverse impacts on infrastructure, and that's really been writ large in the last month in Europe. We've seen enormous impacts on infrastructure in Europe as the heatwave has rolled through there. And council may well be called upon to assist vulnerable residents and visitors to Yarra. Additional measures will need to be taken to safeguard our precious biodiversity, plants, animals and insects. WICAN understands that council will soon be undertaking climate resilience work to help understand and prepare for these impacts. However, what's unclear to us is who will be asked to pay for the significant measures that will be required in the future. So this is really looking at the financial sustainability of Yarra going forward and who's going to bear these enormous impacts. Every local government will bear enormous impacts. So I guess I just wanted to get some initial thoughts from council officers on how we're thinking about this important topic.
Thank you, Shane. Mary Osmond again, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Shane, for the question. Council understands the issue that you described in our response to the climate emergency is covered in our comprehensive climate emergency plan adopted in 2024. This year, we are both updating our 3-year climate emergency plan action plan and developing our first climate change risk assessment. This risk assessment will enable council to better understand the risks and needs for council to better develop decision-making to adapt to a changing climate. Whilst it is clear that there will be significant costs to adapt to climate change and build resilience in our community, not all can be borne by council. We will continue to advocate to the state and federal governments to commit funds needed to support climate, local adaptation and resilient action in Yarra and across all of the country, I suppose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Shane. The next person is Christine Maynard. Christine, welcome.
Good evening. Christine Maynard from Richmond. I'd like that on record tonight. I have an issue at the moment in relation to building orders, and I have a question after the following statements. I've been out of my home for 5 years, and the municipal building surveyor from the Yarra City Council has issued 5 building orders to the same owner for the same issue, which would be waterproofing, and that has never been enforced. So the most recent was the 19th of May this year. The first was the 1st of December 2021. So we have 3 owners without the use of their homes, with a huge insurance bill of over $1 million, and there's no end in sight. On May the 23rd, 2024, my son and I presented ourselves on a current affair, and Yarra City Council gave a statement to a current affair, which is online and can be read. And part of it says the following: Yarra City Council told us, which would be a current affair, it's repeatedly asked the Owners Corporation to fast-track works. I sit here over 2 years later with 2 more building orders for the same issue, and nothing has been done. In actual fact, I now have more uninsured damage to my property than I had back in March 24. So my question is, what responsibility does this council have to enforce building orders, noting that there's 5 building orders on the same property lot owners, which is a private lot matter, for waterproofing? And I'd also like to express that I've contacted the CEO, who has never responded to me in relation to this, and I think that is an indictment on this organisation, that people without their homes, and my son and I have moved 13 times, represents exactly the fact that this government is trying to get people to build in this municipality. And when something goes wrong, and it does, there's nowhere to turn. So be careful when you buy an apartment, because when things go wrong, you're in the same situation after about 34 VCAT hearings that myself and 2 other owners have been in. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Mary Osman again, please.
Through you, Mayor, and thanks, Christine, for the question. Council officers have been responding to a number of emails that you have sent to us about the Hull Street development. I don't have a specific response or an update onto where we are at the moment, but there was a recent building order that was issued, and you are correct, it was around the 19th of May. Councillors, can I take that question on notice and come back to both Christine and to councillors with an update on where we are at with that matter?
Thank you. Beverly Hurley. Thank you, Beverly.
Good evening. My comments tonight relate to the Mater and Bud Street green spaces. I'm directing this to whoever is ultimately responsible for where we are at with the consultation process, the design and execution of these spaces. I attended the open-air pop-up site meetings in both locations. I responded to the survey with the fairly limited leading questions. I spoke at the council meeting when a decision was to be made as to whether these spaces should be approved, raising the point that voting on a green space that only showed 4 black lines on the advertising material was a huge leap of faith for the public that ultimately hasn't delivered on what was promised and asked for. We were told we needed green space to action climate change, and yet the 2 parks show a majority of hard surfaces. Play equipment dominates the space with no consideration to sun safety. The process was supposed to be in consultation with the public at each stage, a process where advice is sought, discussion can occur, and opinions exchanged before a final decision is made. And yet this process has been encapsulated by a few limited and leading questions on a survey that has been the starting and the stopping point. Initial concept drawings that have morphed into final drawings by way of an interpretation of the public's feedback that the public cannot even see or review. This is not collaborative consultation. I do not believe proper process has been followed or allowed to happen as we were promised. The project seemed to be racing ahead regardless of legitimate concerns and does not deliver to the original brief of green spaces. If the consultation process was indeed followed, then I fail to understand how we are at a final stage in going out to tender, given objections to the design still exist. The park in Maida Street is not large enough to be a destination park where you pack up your uncooked food, load the kids into the car along with your bike so you can fix your bike while you cook dinner, because you won't be able to park your car close enough as the loss of 11 car spaces is still unresolved. It should be and needs to be a green shaded space, as we were told again and again that this was a particularly hot section of Collingwood. As a comparison, not all of the green spaces in Fitzroy are littered with play equipment. Bud Street is simply a painted road and a skateboarder's haven. I asked the question to the people responsible for Maida Street and Bud Street with the hard surfaces, the play equipment, the skateboard rail, what happened to proper process, and how do we initiate the change the public is wanting?
Thank you for the question. Sam Hewitt, please.
Thanks, Beverly, for the question. I think, Mayor, I'll take most of it on notice because there was quite a lot in there. I'm aware that some of our officers have spoken to via email to some residents about the changes. It's clear that some of those residents are still unhappy, so I'll take most of that on notice and write back to Beverly this week. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Sarah Wall, please.
Good evening. More than 100 residents signed 2 separate tabled petitions opposing aspects of both the Maida Street and Bud Street park designs. The message sent was clear and consistent. Many supported the parks, but the green parks that the City of Yarra promised. Parks that provide shade, cooling, biodiversity and places to relax. The message is not reflected in the final designs. The process too changed without residents being informed. The final designs were never returned to the community for comment. Instead, on June the 3rd, residents received an email from council officers advising their feedback had been incorporated, the designs had been finalised and projects were moving to tender and construction. Nor were they presented to councillors, our elected representatives, for public scrutiny before being declared final. This is not meaningful, transparent community consultation. The designs themselves remain deeply disappointing and highly problematic. Maida Street was not the park we were shown during consultation. All the elements 100 residents asked to be removed from the design at Bud Street remained. Neither were the parks the residents asked for. At Maida Street, residents asked for more shade. Instead, the basketball ring has been replaced with random fitness poles and a miniature scooter/skateboard track on hard surfaces, on a site that is only 19 metres wide. This is not a park designed for cooling, biodiversity or quiet enjoyment. It is not what residents supported and is not what we asked for. Parking has also been ignored. Maida Street residents have repeatedly sought certainty about parking and the loss of 11 precious parking spaces. Rather than resolving the issue before construction, Council now proposes to address parking after the parks are built. This is neither transparent nor good planning, nor is it acceptable to us. At Bud Street, 100+ residents requested the removal of the skateboard grinding rail, the second-hand tram stop, the oversized orange metal traffic cone and redundant power pole. We asked for greenery and grass. Instead, there is no grass at all. Our suburb is not a tip. Residents have since been told that the underground electrical infrastructure prevented grass from being included, something residents should have known before being asked to support the project. Finally, regarding the Bud Street site, I asked councillors to seek, 1, assurance that appropriate safety assessments have been undertaken for the Bud Street site regarding the underground electrical infrastructure, particularly the recommendation for load testing, and clarifications of the make good costs. Access to the cables will be required in the future. Costs will either be on our council rates or on our electricity bills, but they'll be on one. The decision made by unelected City of Yarra Council officers to proceed to tender before addressing these issues has destroyed community confidence in the process. So I ask you, the councillors, to suspend the works, withdraw the current park designs and return them to community for genuine consultation before irreversible decisions are implemented and any more of our money and time is wasted.
Thank you, Sarah. Sam Hewitt, and then I think Councillor Gomez has got his hand up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Sarah. Perhaps similarly, I'll take most of that on notice, Mayor. I think the question about pausing and suspending the project would be a question for the council. Perhaps that's where Councillor Gomez is going. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Gomez. Thank you, Mr. Hewitt. Councillor Gomez.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mayor. Over the last week, I've been receiving many phone calls and emails about this issue. I must admit, when we decided in March to proceed with the road discontinuances, which I still support, it was unanimous. I expected the final design for whatever we did for those two parks to come back to council. We've done it with the Brunswick Street Oval redevelopment project. We did it with Annette's Place Playground. We did it with the Yambler Pavilion. So I mistakenly assumed that for a design as critical as this, for both getting it right and getting accepted by the community in Collingwood,
you need to ask a question.
That we would get it right. So my question to the CEO or to governance would be, can we please bring this final design back to council at the appropriate time for a decision? Thank you.
Would anyone like to answer that quick, CEO?
I will. I'll take it on notice.
Just speaking as Mayor, I think my take on it, but I don't know because I'm not the councillor for Collingwood, but my take on it is the vast majority of people in Collingwood like roads to parks in Budd Street and Matter Street, but there's an indeterminate number don't like the current design. Now, that could be what you say it is, it could be less, it could actually even be more, who knows? So in light of the way that we deal with issues, whether it's Victoria Park or Elizabeth Street or Wellington Street or Kent Street in Richmond, we don't force stuff down people's throats. So I'm going to talk to the ward councillor when she's back on Friday or Monday, and any other councillor who's interested in this. You and I met yesterday. It was a very productive meeting, and this is a work in progress. We'll get back to you with a meaningful response. I just don't want to say what I think until I've spoken to the ward councillor, even if I get the answer that I might get. But next week, you'll get some answers, staunch answers. Thank you. The next person is Elizabeth Honey.
Yep. Through you, Mayor, I'd like to know what the scope of the Richmond Library development is, please.
Thank you. Mr. Hewitt.
Thanks, Elizabeth, for your question. Officers have prepared a number of concept options for councillor consideration and have followed up with some further information about housing options on top. Officers will soon brief councillors about other library and community hub opportunities in the city. At this time, council's budgeted $300,000 in its capital works program for this current year, and we plan to deliver some immediate improvements to the library itself, as well as designing some improvements for the upper level that will improve both the performance and amenity and usability of that upper level. And then the construction of those improvements will happen next year or beyond, subject to the council's budget decisions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elizabeth. The next person is Stephen McCulloch. Welcome, Stephen.
That's on? Okay. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for this opportunity to talk tonight. I am here tonight representing a group of residents who live in and around the mixed-use zone in the southwest pocket of Richmond near the Corner Hotel. Specifically, we have concerns around buildings at 17 to 23 Wangaratta Street and 68 Tanner Street in Richmond, which for a number of years now have been in an extremely dilapidated and unsightly state. They're covered in graffiti, and this is creating a ghetto-like environment that's attracting unwanted and undesirable behaviours to the area and represents a loss of amenity to residents. We've not sat on our hands in trying to address this. A number of us have over the years approached council seeking action to be taken against the owners. Most recently, as recently as last week, one of our residents received a response from the compliance team stating that an officer's report recommended no further action be taken because the unsightliness apparently doesn't meet council's criteria for taking action. Whilst there was some subsequent conversation with the acting head of compliance which suggested that action would be taken, we remain unclear as to what exactly is going to be done. Separately, several of us have approached Mecca directly on the understanding that Mecca owns these buildings. Mecca initially denied any association with these buildings, so we went and conducted our own land title and company searches and confirmed that in fact these buildings are owned by the co-CEOs of Mecca through a holding company known as Amalfi Nominees Proprietary Limited. When presented with that information, Mecca and specifically their public relations department continued to deny any responsibility, either corporate or social, to clean up these buildings. And of even greater concern, their response to us most recently has been that they expect council to clean it up. As local residents and ratepayers, we find it absolutely abhorrent that an organisation like Mecca, or anyone for that matter, would expect council to clean up unsightliness that is owned by people associated with them. But equally, we're also frustrated with council for not being able to take action on this when requested to do so. So my question specifically tonight is, we're currently at our wit's end in terms of where to go with addressing this issue. We'd like to know what action can and will be taken by Yarra Council to ensure that the unsightly state of these buildings is addressed, and more particularly to ensure that property owners like Mecca, who have extremely deep pockets, do not continue to get away with ignoring local residents' requests to maintain buildings to an acceptable manner. Thank you.
Mary Osmond, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Stephen, for your question. Council will apply the principles for managing graffiti on private property as outlined in the endorsed graffiti management framework. Specifically for this site, however, Council has sent correspondence to the property owners requesting clean-up of the property and removal of graffiti, and will continue to work with the team to achieve compliance. Council will also make available graffiti cleaning kits to the property owners and is open to working with the property owner to undertake graffiti removal works. So we'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Stephen, can I just add to that? This is like, if you send me photos tomorrow, I can definitely try and get some media attention and try to hit them at their hip pocket, because they're very, I'd say the vast majority of their customers would be horrified that people in my family go there a lot, would be horrified by this vandalism, this behaviour of just total lack of concern. So if you contact the ward councillor, Councillor Davies here, and myself tomorrow, especially with a couple of photographs, and maybe somebody who's willing to, I'll let you, and maybe somebody from the residents who'd be willing to talk to the media, maybe we can squeeze them that way too. I've got Councillor Davies and then Councillor McKenzie.
Yeah, just quickly, it's not really a question, but we're meeting.
Yeah, but there has to be a question. Just turn it into a question. Just say everything you want to say.
Are you good for a coffee 11 a.m. Thursday?
That's a good question. All right, Councillor McKenzie.
So I just want to ask Ms. Osman, the changes that we made to the local laws that came to our last council meeting, does that provide council with more powers to take action on this that weren't available before, and when will they be available to us?
Ms. Osman.
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question. The local law, the existing local law will sunset, and the new local law will apply from September. There is some clarity around graffiti, but we always like to try to work with these building owners to clean up graffiti on sites. So we'll continue to implement that, and we'll use whatever enforcement action we can to implement that. But the new local law won't come into play until September.
Thank you, Stephen. And the last person I've got here is Marilyn Sinclair. Marilyn, welcome.
My question pertains to a notice on June the 19th, 2025, in reference CPGN 25/03079, given by Council by Compliance Officer CO 110 to remove potted plants on a narrow strip of land in a lane between Johnson Street and Perry Street, bordering the Bendigo Hotel. The order was given that the plants needed to be removed by the 10th of July. As the owner is overseas, the council has allowed the request to be extended till the 31st of July. It states that the plants and other items have been placed on the footpath within a right-of-way, ROW 240, and is resulting in obstruction to the passage and use of the laneway. It is based on strict interpretation of Clause 10.2, Council's General Local Law. The issue as a result of this is the footpath in the lane is too narrow to be used as a pathway anyway. It's only about 2 feet wide, has no other function other than the current use of, at the Johnson Street end, of the beautification of the space by these plants, and the other end, which provides only a dumping area for rubbish and other items of old trolleys, anything that anybody can dump can be dumped on this narrow space. So, to me, the removal of these plants has no value. The history and the current use of the laneway is this. Plants have been there since 1990 and are on a very narrow strip of land that is impossible for people to walk down anyway, as it's too narrow. Not caused any difficulty for pedestrians to walk down the lane, as they all use the roadway of the lane itself. The plants sit on this narrow strip between the wall of the Bendigo pub and the Johnson Street end laneway. They do not impinge in any way of transiting through the lane. They in fact beautify this section of the lane, while the remainder attracts old broken shopping trolleys, broken furniture, as I said before. They in fact cause more hazard to people and vehicles than the plants. Removing the plants serves no practical purpose for access or safety. The lane remains fully open and traffic able for pedestrian services and emergency. Thus, it's about a council enforcing a technicality at the cost of community culture. This section, since 2022, has provided green, pleasant space for art exhibitions and cultural events, and is an extension of the Yarra Council decreed arts precinct.
Marilyn, your time is running out.
In Johnson Street.
1 second. Sorry, your time has run out. So thank you for your question. Mary Osman, would you like to answer that, please?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Marilyn, for your question. Okay. Council appreciates the contribution residents are seeking to make to improve the appearance of the area. However, Council is also required to ensure that public land is managed consistently and in accordance with the requirements of the General Local Law. I will also note that a complaint was received regarding these plantings. In applying the local law, Council considers a range of factors that includes access, equity of use and compliance with shared public spaces. Marilyn, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you regarding this, but I need to be clear that a complaint was received regarding the planting in this location. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Marilyn. Is there anyone else who's got a question who's not registered? Okay, we'll move on to the business items. Could one of you guys just turn off that light there on the thing? Brian, don't jump up, Brian. Just relax, mate. Don't rush. Okay, council business reports. First one, 7.1 e-bike share. We've got 5 people registered to speak. The first person is Herschel Landis.
Thank you very much. E-bikes, don't confuse procurement with public interest. Mayor and councillors, I accept that this procurement process has not delivered a satisfactory income, but a failed procurement process does not necessarily mean a failed public policy. In fact, I spoke to a major retailer at the end of Bridge Road who expressed disappointment if you were to lose the bikes. Under the Local Government Act, councillors are required to act in the best interest of the municipal community. This report explains why the tender failed. It does not adequately explain why ending a well-used transport service is in the public interest. Over the past 5 years, the shared e-bikes have recorded more than 4,250,000 trips in Yarra. Around 91% of users are local residents, not tourists, and nearly 1 in 3 users are women, with around 20% of Yarra households not owning a private motor vehicle. Shared mobility provides an important transport option for many residents. During my recent travels, I visited several cities with mature shared mobility networks, including London, and what struck me was that they were not abandoning shared e-bikes because of operational challenges. They were improving how the services were managed, integrating them with public transport, providing designating parking areas and refining the operational model. Council has recently demonstrated that it is prepared to subsidise services where they deliver broader community benefits. It has chosen not to recover the full cost of waste services and has been prepared to forego parking revenue where it was considered that was justified. So why should shared e-bikes be judged by a different standard? The real question is not whether shared e-bikes can operate at no cost to council. The real question is whether the transport, environmental and community benefits they deliver justify an appropriate level of public investment. So if the answer is yes, then the procurement process should be redesigned, not the service being abandoned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next person is Jeremy Lawrence.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm speaking on behalf of Streets Alive Yarra. So many residents in Yarra use share bikes, particularly those who are younger or those who aren't wealthy enough to own and operate a car. We believe that streets are for everyone, and we should be supporting people to use the mode that best works for them, including the mode of share bikes. If share bikes are causing problems by being ridden on footpaths, then we suggest the solution is to make it safe to ride on our streets by expanding 30 k's an hour zones to reduce vehicle speeds, by adding modal filters to reduce vehicle volumes, and building a network of protected bike lanes. If share bikes are causing problems by being parked on footpaths, then we suggest the solution is to add an on-street bike parking corral to every street in Yarra, just as there's a car park in every street in Yarra, and require share bikes users to park the bikes in those corrals. If share bikes are causing problems by costing council money, thereby forcing ratepayers to prop up a multinational organisation, then we suggest the solution is to apply that principle consistently to all modes of transport. Right now, council offers 3/4 of its on-street car parks for free, thereby encouraging commuters to drive in, which consumes petrol. Most of their petrol comes from overseas refineries supplied by crude oil from the Middle East. By choosing to forego the possible revenue from non-resident commuters, council is nudging people toward driving and therefore propping up multinational organisations such as Saudi Aramco, Total Energies or ExxonMobil. Instead, council should be charging people a reasonable fee to park all day, such as the same fee for a daily public transport ticket, and using a small fraction of that revenue to build an on-street parking corral in every street for bikes, either private bikes or shared bikes. So in conclusion, no matter which way you look at it, whether from the principles of climate, equity or economics, we believe we should be choosing to support bike share. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Karen Havenga.
Hi, I'm Karen Havenga and I'm from Richmond. Richmond Station has always been a significant destination for these e-bikes. It's near the Sporting Precinct and Swan Street, and it's which is one of our busiest activity centres. It provides access to more than half of the train lines in Melbourne. So the officer report included some information about hire bike usage, and I want to put that sort of information into context using Richmond Station. So over 60% of trips were under 2 kilometres. That's the distance from Richmond Station to Victoria Street. So it's about that revitalisation of Victoria Street. And if you walk that, it takes 23 minutes over the Richmond Hill, but it's only 7 minutes by bike. By public transport, it can take 20 to 40 minutes. The second one was over 35% of trips were between 2 and 5 kilometres. Well, it's 4 kilometres from Victoria Gardens to Richmond Station, and that's a 40-minute trip by public transport or 50 minutes to walk. It's similar to do that to Burnley Station, but it's a 10-minute bicycle ride. Over 78% of trips had a duration of 20 minutes or less. Well, in 20 minutes, you can ride from Richmond to North Fitzroy by public transport. Again, that's a 30 or 40-minute trip, assuming that all of your connections are going well. So hire e-bikes provide connectivity across Yarra. People who are using these bikes are under 35. Now, how many of the emails that councillors have got complaining about these bikes, perhaps, were from people who are 35 and under? And how many people in this chamber are 35? Certainly, I think the people making this decision are not the people who are using these bikes. They're also being used by people who are below the median income, and people will save money by not owning a car and counting on the convenience of these cars when it's needed. So why don't people just ride their own bikes? Well, there's lots of reasons. There are many apartments in Yarra that don't have secure storage or space for a bike. People worry that their bikes will be stolen or already had them stolen, or because they need to get transport one way, they're getting a lift home or something, or because they're shift workers who've caught public transport in one direction and then need to get home again outside public transport hours. We already subsidise private waste companies to collect our rubbish bins, and rubbish bins even cause more access problems than badly parked e-bikes do. We've all had to cope with bins on a narrow footpath.
20 seconds.
In the same way that council chooses to support private businesses to provide council services like waste collection or neighbourhood houses, council could choose to spend money for the council benefit that these bikes provide. I ask that you defer this motion and look into finding a procurement process that works and allows these e-bikes
Thank you, Karen. Your time is up. The next person is Elizabeth Carr.
This address is based on two sources. A podcast I urge all to listen to, Bill McKibben talking to Ezra Klein. It's called The Very Bad and Very Good and Very Bad News on Climate. Bill McKibben has stuck with the climate debate ever since he wrote The End of Nature in 1989. He's one of my heroes. And two Guardian articles. One, Sydney is awash with shared e-bikes. Is Australia finally falling in love with Lime? And rental e-bike programs booming in Australian cities as e-scooter moral panic seems shared e-bikes pull ahead. Now, climate politics has swung back and forth. Greens, now Yarra for All, Labor. I don't care who's in power. We need an inspiring bipartisan effort on all fronts, as effective and as convincing as possible. We have to take the issue seriously. Our summers have become times of fear. We know that. For God's sake, you listen to the news. We're listening to how many people got their houses burnt down. Europe's just had this epic heat wave. Are we unable to grasp the seriousness of the problem? The Earth is predicted to enter the strongest El Niño in 26-27, and that's going to be fierce. I'm not a doomsayer, I'm just saying what scientists are saying. The whole physical systems around the planet we depend on, the jet stream and the Gulf Stream, have gone wonky, says McKibben, and there's a 50% chance of large-scale collapse in these systems, which could lead to unimaginable violent storms. Here at home, we've just had our local drains upgraded, but I think that's going to be kind of swept away. What can we do? We need to electrify everything for everyone. Electrify everything for everyone and stop burning fossil fuel. Don't just give up on the e-bike scheme. Make it work. Get behind it. Set community expectations, learn from mistakes. Lime bikes are heavy now, they're 43 kilos, and they're harder to damage. Negotiate with goodwill, make it work. Yarra, please be willing to adopt and educate and change the culture.
30 seconds.
E-bike riders are not the lycra wealthy, trendy people. And we heard the stats from the demographic. It's going gangbusters in Sydney. I say electrify everything for everyone. And I'll keep saying that until I get to the end of my time. Electrify everything for everyone. Electrify everything for everyone. Electrify everything for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Electrify everything for everyone. We think that's a very good point. Christine Maynard, the last person who's registered to speak. You've got 3 minutes, Christine.
Electrify everything for everyone. Okay. So I'm so glad that you banned e-scooters, and I'm supportive of the e-bikes. I have 2 little dogs. One's named Shampers, and she hates e-bikes. If you ride past, she'll probably make you fall off. I'm sick of them on the footpath. Now, as a security guard, I generally walk home at 11:30, 12, 12:30, 1 o'clock from work, or the tram. Yes, I ride a tram. And the only people I see on e-bikes are under 35, thanks, Karen. And they're the ones that are at the pubs that are drunk and have no helmet on, who don't know the road rules, who don't care about the road rules, who put 2 of them on an e-bike and drive like maniacs and then dump their bike somewhere for us as ratepayers to pick up. So thanks for confirming that. Also, thanks for confirming, Karen, the crime statistics, that everyone's bikes are being stolen in Yarra, thanks to the elephant in the room. So we've all confirmed that. But I'm really glad that you're supporting the issue with the e-bikes and obviously previously with the e-scooters, because at the end of the day, they are a hazard, and I will be glad if we do get rid of them totally, and that the people who are utilising them don't have the opportunity to do so, and that we're the ones that have to pay for it. So I would like to be able to walk on the footpath without them riding down on the footpath. I think that's what a footpath is for feet, not a bicycle. So I fully support e-bikes. It's been totally gone from Yarra. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions for officers at this stage? Yes, we do. So Mr. Exxon and Fanush, if you want to come, and Ms. Osman, anyone who's here. Maybe just drag an extra chair up, please. Councillor Gomez, when the officers have settled in, do you want to ask a question, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I have 3 questions. Yep, okay. First and foremost, could you give us a bit of insight into the direct and indirect costs Yarra Council has incurred in supporting this trial over the last 6 years?
Through you, Mayor. So, as the officer report states, this trial has been in existence for nearly 6 years. In terms of estimating direct costs, that's very difficult to do, but we do know that a significant proportion of the costs are officer time. That's officer time across the whole organisation, from the CEO right down to lower level officers in Band 5 and other roles. They do a number of activities, including writing reports, preparing procurement material, responding to complaints, checking sites for potential parking locations. So those are the main areas of cost for council. But on top of that, we've also had significant legal and consultant costs and some costs associated with infrastructure. In terms of an estimate, I couldn't give you an accurate one, but it would be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Councillor Gomez, question 2.
It's a question number 2. So, based on the numbers that in your report, over 400,000 trips, average duration 8 minutes. I've used the numbers shown in an Age article on the 1st of February, with that line would charge a $1 unlock fee and about 60 cents a minute. Based on those numbers, it's well over $2 million earned by the operator basically for having the right to have those e-bikes in our community. Have we received a cent of that earned revenue?
Through you, Mayor. So in a word, no. The MOU doesn't provide a facility to receive funding from the operator, and that's why we've suggested that we'd go down a contract route in order to correct that issue. So in answer to your question, no.
One last question. Mayor. There was a comment made by someone from the audience about trying to renegotiate. Is there anything stopping us from going to market or receiving an offer from, or receiving a negotiation from an operator in the future if we were to make a decision tonight?
Through you, Mayor. So there's nothing preventing us from re-prosecuting this question at a future date. No.
Thank you. Councillors, any other questions from any councillors to the officers? I've got a suggested way forward, an alternative motion from Deputy Mayor Harrison, which I believe Councillor Ho is seconding. So, Councillor Harrison, Deputy Mayor Harrison, before you speak to this, can you just explain what it is?
Look, I've just got an amendment which gives greater clarity around the timelines for action to be taken if this resolution were to pass this evening.
Okay. Well, we'll move and second that. So, Deputy Mayor Harrison, you've got 3 minutes starting now. Thank you.
E-bike share operator Lime and its customers have been on notice about the problems with shared e-mobility for some time. We've heard just now they've been operating in Yarra for almost 6 years. They've been given every opportunity to clean up their act and improve their game. But I see no evidence of this happening in Richmond. In the last 4 months, I myself have reported 38 inappropriately parked e-bikes. Issues include e-bikes blocking the footpath, e-bikes parked on the median street in the middle of Burnley Street, e-bikes parked on the footpath near shared mobility parking bays that have been put in at great expense to council, e-bikes parked in front of fire exit doors for apartment buildings, e-bikes lying in the road, e-bikes being ridden on the footpath, putting pedestrians at risk, e-bikes and delivery bikes having near misses with hospitality staff in our activity centres, the staff of whom must run the gauntlet of irresponsible riders when serving customers in outdoor dining areas. There are 2 issues here. Shared e-bike users refuse to follow the rules and show no consideration for others. An operator which has demonstrated that it cannot or will not manage its operations so that the community members are safe on Yarra's streets. As has been said this evening, Council has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars managing shared mobility in Yarra, defending a VCAT human rights case brought by local residents, and VCAT made it quite clear to Council that under the Roads Management Act 2004, we have an obligation to keep the footpath clear from unnecessary obstructions. The experiences of the e-bike trial shaped the tender specifications. The tenderer failed to address the specifications outlined in the tender specification documents, submitted incomplete returnable schedules, services and tender forms. Council provided opportunities for the sole tenderer to supply the information required. This was the bare minimum required to satisfy Council that the potential operator would properly manage shared e-bike services in Yarra. Yarra's ratepayers are carrying the burden of $10.5 million in cost shifting from other levels of government. Why would we enter into an agreement for an e-bike share scheme with a multinational company which is effectively corporate cost shifting onto Yarra's ratepayers? We charge businesses for footpath trading zones, but Lime has had a free ride on Yarra's ratepayers, with ratepayers paying for Lime to operate its scheme free in our municipality. This cannot continue. We must prioritise the needs of pedestrians on our footpaths. We have legal obligations, and that's the bottom line.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harrison. Councillor Ho, it's seconding.
Okay. Yep. So, Mayor and fellow councillor and member of the community, I support the officer's recommendation not to extend this permit share e-bike contract to end this current agreement. I want it to be clear. I support cycling, active transport, and privately owned e-bike. However, I do not support continued commercial share e-bike scheme that does not properly meet the council operational, financial, community requirement. The current share e-bike trial have always been last 6 years, have never been on without agreement on a contract. Under this current agreement, the operator no pay to the council no fees or income share for Yarra. At the same time, council have to use a significant resource of staff, manage complaint enforcement, parking customer service, infrastructure, and data. This is so ridiculous with our white money payer in Yarra. We also continue here concerning enrichment, more likely on the footpath, e-bike left around the narrow street of Richmond. This especially affects the people on the pram, or the people with disability and with limited vision. The report we call improper parking, riding on the footpath, speeding, riding without helmet, carrying more than one person. Our council cannot ignore those problems simply because the service convenes for some young user who sometimes, like others say, is drunk. And I understand that I do support, but this is the thing that is between responsibility of the resident. A shared transport service must operate safely, accessibly, make clear financial operation standard. And this is not cost shifting to council. So until then, council should be put safety, pedestrian accessibility, responsible use of web pay resource first. For this reason, I support the officer recommendation. I do not support this continuing current alignment share e-bike scheme in Yarra. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ho. Any other councillors like to speak on this matter? Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you. Look, thanks for the report. I don't think that we should approve this tender, but I don't think that means we have to cease this scheme completely. I know that I might be on a minority here, but if this recommendation or if this motion doesn't pass, I'll move an alternative to continue the trial while council seeks further advice on the procurement and tender processes. Look, since this trial has begun, there have been issues, and we've spent a lot of time since I've been on this council trying different things to iron some of those out. Bikes are very different to e-scooters, and they have different sorts of users. But we do know that more than 90% of these users are our local residents. They're the people that live in our neighbourhoods, our neighbours and fellow ratepayers. So it isn't primarily a visitor service. It's a transport option for people who live in our community to get to work, to connect to public transport and to support our local businesses. Nearly half of the riders from the data that we have also are below the medium income. So we're looking at an affordable transport option for many people in our community. I know the scheme isn't perfect. It does... there are some issues with it, but I don't think that is a good enough reason to cease this now. That's why we put such a detailed procurement out, and I think that we should give it another go and re-look at some of those terms. I think some of the arguments for keeping these have been really sound in this room and in my inbox today. Those against do relate a lot to user behaviour, but we don't ban cars for user behaviour. If, as I said, if this recommendation is defeated, I will put a different one. I think it's a more balanced approach, and that's why I would be supporting this recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor Gomez.
Thank you, Mayor. So I like e-bikes. I've got one myself. I ride it every day. I rode it here tonight. I hope that by doing so, I'm doing my very tiny little bit, to address climate change by not driving here. But whereas councillors, it's not dependent on what we think as individuals, but what we think you guys deserve. So we had to carefully weigh the potential benefits of a shared e-bike service against the impacts on residents, public spaces and council resources. Firstly, are we doing enough to protect amenity and accessibility of our streets and footpaths? Yarra is one of the most densely populated municipalities in Victoria. Many of our footpaths are already heavily used by pedestrians, people with disability, older residents, parents of prams, shoppers and visitors. Almost everybody can share a story of how one of these shared e-bikes has been left inappropriately, causing danger or at least inconvenience to people. We expect our residents to bring in their bins. We expect our cafes to manage their tables and chairs. Why can't the operator of this shared e-bike service achieve the same outcomes? The burden of managing these e-bikes has fallen onto us and fallen onto you as ratepayers. I'd rather see more bike ownership in Yarra. You're not likely to leave your own bike in the middle of a footpath to annoy others. Secondly, Are we concerned enough about pedestrian safety? On streets and footpaths already congested. Residents complain to me weekly about unsafe riding and inappropriate abandonment of e-bikes everywhere and anywhere. I've yet to see any long-term effective mechanism to address these concerns. And third, and something that's close to my heart, is are we being financially sustainable? I've already asked a question to officers tonight. You can see the operator is doing very well. Of all the trips that they've been able to have in Yarra, they've earned, by my simple mathematics, millions of dollars, and we've earned none of that. I don't think it's fair. We pay the costs, they earn the revenue. We tried to, for want of a better term, renegotiate, and it wasn't successful. As we heard tonight, we can go back to the market, we can seek new terms. But at this moment, I ask my fellow councillors to send a very strong message and adopt this officer recommendation to terminate the MOU. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Comments? Anyone else like to speak on this matter? No? Councillor Aston.
Lime is worth approximately 2.46 billion Australian dollars. These guys are a profit-making company, not a public service. Businesses in Yarra pay, a cafe in Yarra pays about $800, $1,000, $1,200 a year to be able to use public space to operate their business. Lime pays nothing. When one of our speakers earlier said that a failed procurement doesn't mean a failed policy, no, it doesn't. What it means is that the people who responded to the procurement wouldn't comply with the conditions. Lime is very, very happy making a profit here without paying for using the public infrastructure, and they want to keep it that way. That is not fair to the remainder of the other businesses in Yarra who pay through the nose to some extent to operate their businesses here. The average business in Yarra is probably worth about $300,000, not $2.46 billion. In regards to the number of people who use the e-bikes, lots of stats have been bandied about, and I've got some of my own. At 201 trips per day, we have around 100,000 people who live and work in Yarra. So that's about 0.1% or a tenth of a percent of the population that is using the e-bikes, or alternatively, it's 99.9% who aren't. And we've got people asking us to subsidise that 0.1% of the population and a $2.46 billion company for potentially, and here comes some more stats, helping with climate change. Now, I'm all about the environment. I'm all about doing the things to help protect and restore our natural environment and restore our planet. With the average ride at 2 kilometres, the saving in CO2 emissions is 733 quintillions of a percent. That is 0.13733 of a percent of our emissions, right? 201 trips per day is not going to save the planet, and it never will. If you want to do something about climate change, there are a billion other things that you could do that will be far more effective. So, for example, if you gave up vaping, and I have seen many people riding along, smoking a vape, riding an e-bike, if you gave up vaping, you would save 33 trillionths of a percent. That's only 10 zeros, 33, significantly more giving up vaping than riding e-bikes. Or additionally, you could stop buying fast fashion. If you bought 2 less garments every year, that would make up for probably about 1,800 2-kilometre rides. So I endorse Councillor Harrison's amendment, and I will be voting for it.
Thank you. Anyone else want to say anything? I'll just say a couple of words. I think that we're forgetting that the decision, this debate tonight, this decision is around a bulk standard procurement policy. We're not here to debate climate change. We're not here to debate e-bikes. And we're definitely not here to debate electricity. We don't need any lectures from Ms. Honey or anyone about that. We've just spent over $3 million to electrify the Collingwood leisure centres. Thanks very much to the federal government for tipping in a lot of that money. That's a huge, huge step forward for the electrification of our leisure centres, and hopefully the next two will come second. We've got a tender that went out, and we said to anyone who wanted to tender for the e-bikes, we want e-bikes. Who doesn't love e-bikes? It's like saying you don't like world peace. In abstract, they're a great thing. And we only had one person, only had one company that tendered. So these are the facts. Only one company tendered, and the officers are saying, in a very sober language, not political, very sober language, that this tender did not meet the needs that we had set. In other words, we cannot subsidise a private company. If Avis rents you a car tomorrow in the city of Yarra and you dump it on Bridge Road, do you think they're ever going to let you use that again? Do you think they're not going to fine you because they've got your credit card details? Of course they will. But this company refuses to police their clients. They've got the technology to do it. And that's why we see e-bikes all over the joint. And they're trying to wedge us because they know it's sort of seen as, you know, climate change, and we're like this progressive council. So they think they can get away with it. But all their money, they can go, well, we're just going to offer you a second-class product. We're not going to police our customers. What I suggested on the radio recently was 3 strikes and you're out. First time you dump your bike, you might be a bit drunk, you might be 8, we've all been there, and you just dump it somewhere, you get a text, don't do it again. Second time, you're not allowed rent from us for another week. Third time, you're banned. You could do it 3 strikes and you're out. They did not want to know. They did not want to know. They've made $2.5 million from their MOU here in the city of Yarra. Not a cent has come to the council. In fact, we've had to subsidise them. Can you imagine, let's say, a kebab shop on Brunswick Street saying, anyone who dumps any of our paper from the kebabs on Brunswick Street, we expect the council to pick up, and we're not going to pick it up. That's essentially what they're saying. If it was just left outside the front of that kebab shop, they're actually taking the mickey. And we're not saying no to e-bikes. People can have their own private e-bikes, and we want them to come back with a better offer. We will reopen a tender if we have a company that comes back and meets the bare minimum standards, which is not a corporate monolith expecting an underfunded council to bankroll them. That's corporate subsidies, and this council will never do that. Would anyone else like to say anything? Okay, Deputy Mayor Harrison, you're right of reply, 2 minutes.
I think it's all been said here. Ultimately, the footpaths belong to ratepayers. They're ours to use. We shouldn't be handing them over to a private operator to have their users dumping e-bikes with no consideration of anybody else. That's really what it comes down to, is that we don't have the money to subsidise a very profitable company, and our residents and ratepayers have got every right to expect to be able to use the footpaths safely, and that's what this is about. There is no evidence that this operator had any intention of doing anything to improve the situation. They had 6 years operating in Yarra almost. They have not fixed the problems that they've been very well aware of for a long time. So this is the right decision tonight. If we could get an operator who came along and actually would do the right thing and put forward a reasonable proposal, then council could consider it at that time. But right now, we cannot possibly consider more of the same when we know the impacts it's having on our ratepayers and the residents of Yarra. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harrison. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of the Deputy Mayor Harrison, Councillor Ho motion, please raise your hand. Councillor Davies, Councillor Gomez, Councillor Ho, Councillor Jolly, Deputy Mayor Harrison, Councillor Aston. Those opposed, Councillor Mackenzie. That is passed. We'll move on. Thank you all who've come for that agenda item. We'll move on to 7.2 Amendment C271. Yarra Fitzroy Collingwood Bill Form Controls. We've got 2 registered speakers. The first one is Ron Merkel. Ron, you're very welcome. Please come to the front. And just before you speak, I'll just wait for everyone to leave so we get the full gist of your contribution. Maybe just wait 20 seconds or so, sir. Ron, welcome, and you've got 3 minutes to make your submission. Thank you.
Mayor, councillors, I have a written copy of our submission that we filed on Friday. If anyone doesn't have it, I have it here because I'll talk briefly to it. We ask the council to accept the Standing Advisory Committee recommendation that the rear area of 299 Smith Street not be rezoned. The current zoning is partly commercial and partly residential, but the commercial zone of that property is consistent with the commercial zoning along Smith Street all the way down from Johnson Street to St David Street. And the rear part, which is sought to be rezoned by the council, is consistent with the residential neighbourhood, because to the north, south and west of that block, it's all residential area, and one of them is our houses. The case put by the council for rezoning had 20 alleged zoning errors or anomalies put to the Standing Advisory Committee. It accepted the council's case on 19, but rejected the council's case on the rear of 299 Smith Street. It said that rezoning should respond to place, not just title boundary. And in our written submission at paragraph 6, the committee summarised our submission to it and our case before it, and I should say the council was represented by senior counsel, junior counsel, solicitors and experts. They said that the rear portion of the land was unusually deep, extends further west than other Smith Street properties, has sensitive residential interfaces to Grieve Street and Gore Street, and it was put that it was a unique site and required special reason for rezoning. In the committee's findings, it said it supports the proposed zoning corrections apart from 299 Smith Street. The committee generally agrees with council's overview and reasons. The rezonings are appropriate as they correct identified errors and anomalies, reflect the use ownership of the land and improve function of the planning scheme. Then they turned to 299 Smith Street and said the committee finds that the proposed rezoning of the NRZ1 rear portion of 299 Smith Street is not appropriate. The existing zoning configuration appropriately balances existing land use interface considerations and is an extremely nuanced zoning regime to respond to the site's context. The council officers have given no reason for rejecting the Standing Committee's report. They said that the 19 decisions on one area of rezoning were inconsistent with 299 Smith Street, but the committee's recommendation was totally consistent and explained why rezoning was accepted in one situation and not the others. So we ask the council to pass an alternative resolution. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ron. The next person is Nicholas Steinpress. And apologies if I've mispronounced your surname. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name's Nick Steinprice and I'm a resident on Victoria Street in Fitzroy, where my family also owns our home. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I support well-planned growth. As someone in my late 20s, I understand that Melbourne needs more housing and that activity centres like Fitzroy and Collingwood will continue to evolve. But growth should never come at the expense of qualities that make people want to live here in the first place. Tonight, I want to speak about overshadowing visual bulk and neighbourhood character. I welcome the fact that council officers have recommended retaining stronger amenities, protections and that are proposed by the Standing Advisory Committee, particularly where they preserve overshadowing controls and other protections. I encourage you to continue taking that strong approach as you consider this amendment. Overshadowing is not simply a planning calculation or a technical standard measured for a few hours on one day of the year. It affects our streets, how our streets feel, how much sunlight reaches our homes and public spaces, and whether places like Victoria Street, Marnie Street, or everywhere in Fitzroy, Collingwood and City of Yarra are welcoming places rather than becoming dominated by continuous walls of development. The same is true in visual bulk. Individual developments may comply with planning controls, but their cumulative impact can fundamentally change the experience of living in our neighbourhoods. These decisions are permanent. Once sunlight is lost, it cannot be designed back in. Once the human scale and openness of our beautiful streets are lost, it's incredibly difficult to recover. As I was preparing for tonight, I couldn't help but notice the advertisement on the approved development opposite my home. It proudly promotes uninterrupted, and I quote, uninterrupted protected park and city views. I found the word protected particularly striking. Those views may be protected for the people buying these apartments, but I ask the council to remember that these things that need protection are much broader than private views. They are the sunlight that reaches our streets, the openness of our public spaces, and the character that generations of our residents have helped create. The decisions that you make tonight will shape Fitzroy for decades. As you finalise Council's position before the amendment is sent to the Minister for Planning, I urge you to be as strong as possible in protecting public amenity. Where there is uncertainty, please err on the side of stronger protections against overshadowing, excessive visual bulk and gradual erosion of our neighbourhood character that we make so beautifully unique in Fitzroy. Growth and livability are not competing priorities in my mind. Good planning should achieve both. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Councillors, have you got any direct questions to officers? Well, I've got to suggest a way forward, an alternative motion with just essentially one small amendment to the officer recommendation. There it is on the screen, and I'll just read it out before I move it. Accept this Standing Advisory Committee recommendation 24 to abandon the proposed rezoning of the rear part of land known as 299 Smith Street, Fitzroy, from Neighbourhood Residential Zone 1 to Commercial 1 Zone. I believe Councillor Gomez is seconding that. So I will just, Mrs. Losa, if you can just put the 3 minutes up there. So it is true that the rear of the property that fronts onto Smith Street, it's like a little bit of a Caprivi strip, a little bit of Namibia that sort of sticks out a little bit. And I can understand why the officers at first glance would think, well, let's just make it nice and simple and have the same zoning all the way down north to south. But as the Standing Advisory Committee said, and you can read it yourself in Ron Merkel's submission, the committee finds the proposed rezoning of the rear portion of 299 Smith Street is not appropriate. The existing zoning configuration appropriately balances existing land use interface considerations and has appropriately nuanced zoning regime to respond to the site's context. If we rezone it, it could allow non-residential use right in the backside of Mr. Merkel's property. And that is really what nobody wants. So it might not look as neat and tidy than if you just put a line down it. Sometimes life is a little bit more complicated. And a rezoning would not allow those properties to share the same sensitive relationship with a private garden and habitable room windows. So this is to protect the property of Mr. Merkel. It's very, very interesting that the property owner on Smith Street has got no problem with what this amendment is seeking to achieve. So there is no good guy, bad guy here. There's only good guys. So it's a small amendment that I think will make life a lot easier for the submitter and his family and everyone that lives on that site. In terms of the broader report, I think this has been an immense amount of work for Mary Osman and her team, the planning department, working on one of the most complicated built form controls anywhere in the city of Yarra. So I want to compliment them on their work. I want to compliment all the residents of Collingwood and of Fitzroy and their organisations like the Fitzroy Residents Association for their work in getting us to where we are now. And I'm also think that the work of the Standing Advisory Committee is very, very good, including their criticism of this anomaly, which hopefully this amendment, if it's passed, will correct. So I encourage all the councillors to support this amended motion for myself and Councillor Gomez. Councillor Gomez, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be quick. I echo all the comments from the Mayor. I've been involved in a few of these now. It's an immense amount of work. The effort put in by our planning team, our executives, and most importantly, our community, in order to assess what they wanted in terms of protections, height controls, retention of heritage fabric, and the way in which they want their community to work and they want their community to look. It's an immense amount of work. In many ways, the Standing Advisory Committee was sort of set up to help us do that. Planning in Victoria, as we all know, is going through an immense amount of change. The one thing we do in Yarra Council is we do planning well. I think we've been recognised for that. On that basis, I want to thank the officers for the work they've done, and I recommend this alternate motion to my fellow councillors.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? All right, put that to the floor. Those in favour, please raise your hand. That is passed unanimously. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to suggest a 5-minute break. Would that be acceptable to everybody? Excellent. So we'll come back in 5, maybe 7 minutes max, and we'll get through the rest of the agenda. Thank you, everybody. So let's just come back smack on 8 o'clock. Any councillor has to go to the bathroom, we have to stop the meeting because we're down to our bare quorum. I think I'm right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we can, no, just on 2 if you go at the same time. We're not down to a bare quorum, I'm exaggerating there. So we're going on to 7.3, Draft Amendment C318, Cremorne District Planning Controls. No registrations to speak. Are there any questions, direct questions from councillors to officers? Deputy Mayor Harrison.
Just one. So
just hold on 1 second, please. We got one question from Deputy Mayor Harrison. Yep, far away.
Okay, look, I'm just picking up the points that were made in paragraphs 20 and 21, which talked about the Wurundjeri Cultural Heritage Aboriginal Corporation submitted that they were not part of the consultation in the preparation for the UDF, and that so I just wanted to really ask about what the obligations are to consult, and was this an oversight? Should this have happened in an earlier stage, and is there an opportunity for improvement there?
Thank you. Officers?
Through you, Mayor. When we went out for consultation, we did, for the revised UDF, we did reach out to the Aboriginal Heritage Corporation, which is a state entity, but officers didn't seek feedback from the Wurundjeri Cultural Heritage Organisation. Following contact from the Wurundjeri, we did reach out and had a meeting with the Cultural Heritage officers and elders. We ran through the amendment, explained what it did, what it does, the UDF as well. We provided them with an extended opportunity to provide a submission to the amendment and the UDF, and we've undertaken some further work in response to their concerns. There was a question regarding whether or not we had any obligations under the Aboriginal Heritage Act. We sought advice on that, and no, we didn't. That relates to sort of development occurring on land.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, councillors. Thank you, officers. Councillors, would anyone like to move? Councillor Davies?
I'll just like to accept option 1, the officer's recommendation to move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I've got a seconder. Councillor Gomez, yep. Councillor Davies, would you like to speak to that? Yep, a little bit. You've got 3 minutes anyway, starting now.
Yeah, sure. Look, thanks, officers, for compiling this. I think it's fairly straightforward. The UDF has been in place, or at least been in discussion with the community and the council generally for a few years now. We seem to have a better success rate in an environment where the state government is basically taking control of planning, and so really we seem to be able to do better when our officers get ahead of it. They've got ahead of it well on this with option 1, so I'll be supporting that so that we have a voice at the table and we can at least get some amendments made and some of our local communities' viewpoints embedded in the new planning steps. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gomez?
Thank you, Mayor. Just very quickly, again, reiterating my compliments to the staff who are doing an immense amount of work. This framework for Cremorne has been in play for a long, long time, and it's about time we got on with it, or the state government got on with it. I echo Councillor Davies' words. We should take advantage of the respect, I guess, our planning officers have with their relevant counterparts in state, and try and achieve a good outcome for the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in this matter? No. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is passed unanimously. We move straight on to 7.4. Thank you, officers. Community Grants Programme 2027 and Funding Agreement Arrangements. No registrations to speak. Any direct questions to officers? Councillor Gomez.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question. Just one question about, we have 7 streams, or we're proposing 7 streams of the grants program. Just what happens if one stream is sort of under-allocated, you know, that people were really keen for one and not so keen for another? What do we do in that circumstance?
Thank you, Councillor Gomez. Mayor, under the proposed 2027 grants program, each of the 7 streams has an allocation expressed as a percentage, and you can see that on page 76, within the overall funding envelope of $1.554 million. A stream can be under-allocated if there's not enough eligible, suitable or sufficiently competitive applications to expend that stream allocation fully. In that case, the unallocated funding is not automatically spent within the stream. What's different is in 2027, the report proposes a clearer mechanism to manage this. After the standard panel assessment process is completed, officers may identify any stream underspends and convene an extraordinary panel meeting to consider the strong unfunded applications from the other stream. So, for example, if there weren't enough quality applications applying for local economy, then we would start revisiting the ones that were not successful in the very highly subscribed streams. And then this is taken into account, and the recommendations arising from this meeting of an extraordinary panel are taken with the rest of the recommendations to the council report later in the year for consideration, at which council considers whether they will endorse the suite of recommended grant applications.
One more question, Councillor Gomez.
Just as a follow-up, so we're confident that sufficient controls are in place, that there's no chance for deliberate underrepresentation and or under-allocation, over-allocation. In other words, the independent process we're running will ensure that the best grants get the best chance to be selected.
Yes, and recent years have shown that there are several streams that are more heavily subscribed and with very, very strong applications. And what we do is that once they're exhausted, they're exhausted. However, if there's one that has not met the quality standard, so we didn't get enough of a desired quality for a specific stream, then there may be funds left in that stream, but then those funds are then reconsidered for one more meeting of the panel, they pull together, and then it comes back to the council report later in the year.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Councillor Aston, you've got to suggest a way forward. Have you got a seconder? Deputy Mayor Harrison, just tell us in a nutshell what the motion is.
It's essentially accepting the recommendation of the officers with a slight tweak to the name of the climate resilience stream and on
just
the other
go down
page,
to the, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Transitions the Merri Creek Management Committee to a funding arrangement.
Okay, so that's all clear. So you've got 3 minutes to speak to that, starting when Phil Delosa presses the button. Thank you.
Okay. Grants are an important part of how we engage with public and deliver a wide variety of different endeavours across the community. Here in Yarra, we basically have the most generous grants process outside of the City of Melbourne, and we have a quarter of their overall budget. So we're very, very keen on grants and supporting community endeavours here in Yarra. And I'm really supportive of all the efforts the officers have made over the past couple of years to continually refine and professionalise the grants process. This round has adapted to a significant number of learnings from the previous grants process, and they're reflected in the 2027 guidelines, including the inclusion of a new stream to support our invaluable community groups that had a really hard time passing last year, and that was a recognised learning. Those groups are very, very fundamental to our community fabric and deserve some assistance, which this grants process will now help them achieve. And also make some much needed improvements to the local economy stream, which I know that local businesses will be very, very supportive of and grateful for, while also retaining all the other streams and the same levels of funding as previously. Like I said, this is a very generous grants process, and we can achieve a lot in partnership with the community through this. So, like I said, I'm very supportive of the efforts the officers have made to continually improve this process. We've made really good process so far, and I look forward to more improvements in the subsequent years as we continue to learn and keep it moving.
Deputy Mayor Harrison.
Look, just briefly to thank the officers for the work that they're doing on, as Councillor Aston has said, improving, refining the processes that we use to allocate these grants, which is, an amazing thing that we do here in Yarra. So thank you for all their work on that, and we look forward to this being progressed later in the year to see what is funded.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? No? We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is passed unanimously. We move straight along. Proposed road discontinuance. That's obviously Mayfield Street and Amos Street in Carlton North, Mayfield Street in Abbotsford. We've got no registered speakers. Are there any direct questions to the officers? I'm very happy to move the officer recommendation for the road discontinuance for these two streets, if I can get a seconder. Councillor Aston. I don't really need to speak to this. It's really, really basic and straightforward. I've had a look at both of these sites. Well, I am speaking to it now. And I think they're very, very non-controversial. And hopefully they'll just get passed along for that reason. Councillor Aston, did you want to add anything? No. Anyone else want to speak to these matters? Okay, all those in favour, please raise your hand. That is passed unanimously. We move on to 7.6, Wortham Street and Stallwood Street intersection upgrade. That's obviously in the beautiful suburb of Richmond. Sorry, we do have one registered speaker. I apologise. Michelle Pollock. Michelle, you're welcome. And just press that button when you get there, and you've got 3 minutes to speak. Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for your patience too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Look, I just wanted to speak to this one because I live in Stall Street, and I am both a cyclist, a walker, a driver in this area. My concerns with the proposal, I know there was an area study done, or whatever it was. I did see something up on the street looking at traffic, but what I'm concerned about is that the focus wasn't the focus that it needed to be. So Stall Street is very narrow coming off Bridge Road. It widens at Wertheim and Manton, and then it narrows down again as it heads towards Swan Street. There are cars parked on one side of the street and no standing on the other side. The issue is there's not really room for two cars to go past. So what tends to happen is oncoming traffic gives way, either pulling over to the side where there are streets. But that section where we're looking at, where council is proposing to narrow, that's a very important part where cars pull over and any oncoming traffic coming up from Swan Street can get past all those cars and then pass, and then the car heading south can then continue on without any cars being sideswiped, any cars mounting the gutter, which sometimes happens when people realise it's quite tight to get past. So my concern with this proposal is it's proposed to remove that widened section there so that it's just narrow the entire length of the street, and therefore also at the moment, we have trucks, removal trucks. That's a good place for them to park. Garbage trucks. It gives people some breathing space, it gives some space, and as we know in Richmond there isn't a whole lot of space going on. So to rob us of that, I think it's not safe. And if the concern is about, it's too wide for pedestrians to cross, there's a narrow part just after Manton, you can cross there. There's a narrow part just after Wertheim, you can cross there. So there are options. You don't have to cross in that widened section. It's people's choice, and surely, hopefully we're not so much of a nanny state that people can't make their own choices. And the other thing I would say, from a cycling point of view, the reason why it's hard for, the council report commented that cars were cutting the corner, that bike lane takes up half the available space for a car to enter that street. So if you want to make it safer for cyclists, remove this bit of extra garden that's been basically created to narrow the street entrance, remove that. You don't need to remove car parks. Remove that. Cars can go past, bikes can come out. Everyone's happy. I just feel like we need to apply some more common sense to this proposal and actually look at what it's like to live there and not just what is a nice to have. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michelle. Councillors looking for a way forward. Deputy Mayor Harrison, you've got an amended motion, I believe?
Yes, I do. So I'll just...
so we just get that on the screen. It's just, anyone hasn't seen it, it's the yellow bit.
Yep, so firstly just emphasising that actually there's large numbers of pedestrians using Stall Street. They're a very big group, emphasising the need to prioritise pedestrian improvements. And the second point is to refer this for a further community consultation on the revised concept design, which will be quite different from what had been put up and consulted on last year. So this would return this the detailed design for community consultation before it gets approved by council and constructed.
Thank you. Have we got a seconder for this? Councillor Aston, did you want to speak to this? Deputy Mayor Harrison, you've got 3 minutes.
Yes, look, I don't want to say much other than to say I am very cognisant of the feedback that was provided by community members last year. I think there was something like 146 residents or users of this part of Richmond provide feedback. And a lot of that was actually around the potential loss of parking issues. There was suggested alternative routes for cyclists that would actually be better. It's been acknowledged in the officer report that there are poor sight lines for cyclists at this location because of the two buildings that are either side of the entry to Wertheim Street. That is not something that any design can change. So look, I think we need to be very cognizant of the feedback that's been provided by the community, and I'm very keen for the community to have an opportunity to provide feedback on a revised design before council approves that. That's all I have to say, really.
Thank you. Councillor Ashton. Would anyone like to speak to this? No. Councillor Davies?
I'd just like to add, well, obviously this is an opportunity for yourself to contribute at this stage, so if you've got any issues at that stage, certainly raise it with Councillor Harrison and other Richmond councillors if you take issue with the design, so we can make sure it works. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do you like to exercise your right of reply? No? All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is passed unanimously. We'll move on to 7.7, governance report. No registrations. Any questions to officers? No. I'm happy to move the governance report. Is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor Harrison. I'm not going to speak to it. Do you want to speak to it? No. Anyone else want to speak to it? All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is passed unanimously. We'll move now on to notices of motion. Notice of motion number 1, which is the dogs in pubs, dogs in hospitality venues from me. And if I've got a seconder, I will, thanks to Councillor Davies, appreciate that, I'll move that. So my 3 minutes start now. Look, I'm not going to go over what most of you would already know. The law is quite specific, both federal law and state law, in terms of the Food Standards Code, that dogs can be in the outdoor areas of pubs, but not in the indoor area. We're seeking a tweaking of the state legislation to allow dogs in pubs where the pubs want dogs. So we're not forcing it down every pub in Victoria. So as I say, you wouldn't bring 2 Doberman into Yarra's at 3 o'clock in the morning, like some type of gangster from Colombia or Bogota. But on a cruisy Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock in early summer, there's a jazz band playing at the Rose or whatever. Maybe not at the Rose, they don't have live music, but you know the point I'm trying to make. Bring in a pub and sitting by your feet, not in the area where they're making food, not in the food preparation area, but in the other part, indoor of the pub, as well as outdoor, which you're currently allowed to do, you should be allowed to do. So it would be up to the pub owner to say, we're the type of pub that accepts pubs. It's not going to be forced down the throats of any pub owners. And second of all, if an individual doesn't like dogs, they don't have to go to that pub. There's plenty of other pubs. The vast majority of pubs won't have this, but many pubs, especially in our part of the world, do have that. So this is a motion that's going to be simultaneously moved at Port Phillip Council and other inner city councils, and we're asking the state government to look at this. There's huge, huge interest. I mean, I don't know if you remember the last time this blew up at council, we had 18,000, I think it was, signatures in 2 days. Overwhelmingly of people under the age of 35. There's a lot of community interest in this. And by the way, if you've got a disability and you've got a dog anyway, you're already allowed to go in, so they're already exempt. We're not talking about that situation. They've already got the right to go into a pub, just FYI. So that's pretty much it. And if this passes, we're the first council to pass this motion. There'll be others flowing, and we're just trying to get a bit of a push on in the state election campaign to get the government. It's the Minister for Agriculture. I've never, as a City of Yarra councillor, had to deal with the Minister of Agriculture before, but here we are. And hopefully they see sense. Councillor Davies in seconding.
Yep. Thanks, Mayor, for bringing this forward. I think it's a great signal for the return of some of our just general freedoms. I think it's just a really good idea. It's the kind of idea that's supported around the world. You can fly with your dog in planes in America. So why can't we just have a pint with our pooch, which I kind of like. So I think it's a great step forward, and fully support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Gomez.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very quickly, I support both Councillor Davies and the Mayor. Declare my conflict. I've had a dog for over 30 years. or different dogs, sorry. And I've enjoyed living in Fitzroy North with going to pubs in the outdoor courtyards, having a wonderful social time with our dog. It's something that's quite common overseas. And as Councillor Davies says, in other parts of the world, you can travel your dog on a plane. This seems to be a bit of an antiquated law, and I'm hoping that the advocacy of ourselves and Port Phillip and other councils will see a pragmatic change to this law that allows more choice by both the pub operator and the patron. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Deputy Mayor Harrison.
Just briefly, I mean, the whole point of this is actually to write off to the agencies to look at their codes that they have in place. It will be up to them to assess what they do, but that's the point here, is to, I guess, ask the question.
Councillor Aston.
Oh, I'm definitely voting for this. I'm all for dogs in pubs. As like Ken, I have a dog. I love my dog. I like to take him with me as many places as I possibly can, and I understand a lot of other families are in similar situations. Dogs are not just pets for many people. They are family members, and having them with you when you are out socialising is really, really important for some people. So, as the Mayor said, there'll be a lot of pubs that choose not to open this kind of opportunity up for people, and there'll be pubs that do. So people will still have plenty of choice, but I think that's really what it comes down to. As Ken said, this is quite an antiquated set of rulings where businesses don't have the freedom to decide who they want to be able to let into their pub, and I think that's a really important part of this. So, you know, hopefully the government listens and we get some freedom of choice back.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this matter? No. I will not exercise my right of reply. All those in favour of this notice of motion, please raise your hand. That is passed unanimously. Thank you. We move on to notice of motion. We've got three of them, by the way. This is the second one. A review of paid parking introduction in Victoria Park Precinct. First registration I've got here is Herschel Landis.
Thank you, Mayor. Herschel Landis, ratepayer of Richmond. Victoria Park, the difference between constructive and reactive governance. Mayor and councillors, I don't intend to speak either for or against this motion. My interest is in what this episode tells us about governance and representative democracy. I have followed this matter from the beginning to end. I read the draft budget, I recognise the significance of the proposed parking changes, and alerted my own readers before the budget was adopted, encouraging them to contact their ward councillor while consultation remained open. I also attended the Langridge ward meeting on the 18th of May during the public consultation period. The Victoria Park proposal was not discussed. After the community backlash emerged, I attended both the public meetings convened by the Mayor and have carefully considered the CEO's subsequent correspondence. Looking back over the chronology, I believe the important lessons are about governance, not parking. The annual budget is the Council's most important policy document. It should provide certainty after councillor briefings, public consultation and formal adoption. When a significant decision is reconsidered within weeks of adoption, it inevitably raises the questions about the integrity of that process. The more important question is why this became necessary. Had the residents been made aware of the proposal during the draft budget process consultation, they could have made submissions before council reached its decision. Instead, many residents first became aware of the proposal only after implementation. Letters were delivered. What followed was a community outrage, media attention, public meetings, and now the motion before us tonight. To me, that illustrates the difference between constructive and reactive governance. Constructive governance identifies significant community concerns before decisions are made. Reactive governance responds after implementation has commenced and public confidence has already been damaged. The lesson from Victoria Park is not that council should never reconsider a decision. It is that council should rarely need to. The role of the ward councillor is not simply to vote on behalf of residents, but to ensure that significant local proposals are brought to the community's attention while consultation can still influence an outcome. Consultation is only meaningful if the people most affected know what is being proposed before the decision is made. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Jeremy Lawrence.
Hi, Mayor. I'm speaking on behalf of Streets Live Yarra. Yarra is expected to double its population by 2050, which will increase the demand for on-street parking for visitors, shoppers and residents. We suggest that without significant reform to how we manage on-street parking, difficulties in finding a vacant bay are only going to get worse. And it can take a long time to roll out parking reform across a municipality, which means we need to start now, including the testing or trialling of any new necessary technologies. And the precinct at Victoria Park is an opportunity to test a new approach. Parking reform, we believe, can help residents by restricting how many parking spaces are occupied all day by commuters. But to achieve this, we need new technologies that Council doesn't have at present, such as a method for the app, the parking management system, to restrict how many parking spaces are sold or occupied all day by commuters, and an exception for residents who have residential or visitor permits to be able to park in a metered zone. So those two things are new for us. That second one, the exceptions, is actually a standard part of the New South Wales permit parking guidelines. So it works fine in New South Wales at the moment. It means that, for example, around Victoria Park, the residents who are on the outside side of the street, away from Victoria Park, can park on the opposite side of the street, the one that's close to Victoria Park. We reckon that if Council resolves to test a future-proof parking method in the Victoria Park precinct, we expect the outcomes would be that residents using their permits will be able to find a park, shoppers using, say, 2p tickets will be able to find a park, and commuters, those that are willing to pay a reasonable fee for an all-day ticket, will also be able to find a park. Overall, it would be a win-win, proving a method that works for locals and a method that could be rolled out across the municipality. And if that could be done, for example, with only 1/3 of Yarra's on-street parking bays earning the equivalent of a Mikey public transport daily fare of $11.40 for 240 days per year, the revenue would be in the order of $44 million per year. We say that's a non-trivial sum. So we encourage Council to take up this opportunity and do a trial in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Mark Trescothick. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. I'm speaking specifically to point 2 of this motion, which has absolutely nothing to do with the Victoria Park precinct, but never mind. Here it is, and here we take it. I want to support the proposal. I want to, first congratulate Council on its continued attempts to figure out a way around the parking dilemma that the Australia Post building dumped on the Burnley Pocket and other areas as well. And for their continuing engagement. I note that both the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor will be coming down tomorrow night to the gazebo at Golden Square Park. I can't promise that, I can promise a good turnout. I can't promise that the path will be scattered with rose petals, but I can promise you a reasonably warm welcome and some decent discussion. The most recent attempt is obviously the paid parking along the north side of Madden Grove, and this proposal suggests that we have the council officers review it after 3 months and present it to a councillor workshop. I'd like to make sure that the community is involved in that council officer review, because we are the ones, I think, you probably see it more and more. I'd also like to, and I'm not trying to tell council officers how to suck eggs, to see a log of the patrols or compliance that's done, and maybe at the same time those compliance people could count the number of empty spaces or non-empty spaces. I do think that one thing got missed in this, and I do think certainly tomorrow night, the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor will hear it loud and clear, I have no doubt, that there needs to be some sort of exemption worked through either now or as part of this review to exempt permit holders from some or all of that paid parking zone. 3 words on the sign might be more than sufficient to do the job. But again, I don't wish to tell council and council officers how to suck eggs, but we certainly aren't at the end of the process of defeating the monster that is the parking that has overwhelmed us. But we are certainly on the way, and I again thank council for their continued efforts in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. There are no other registered speakers. We have the motion, obviously, from Councillor Aston. Do you have a seconder? It's a question from Councillor Davies.
A question to officers. When exactly is the curbside and parking review due for public exhibition?
Ms. Osman?
Through you, Mayor, as we briefed councillors at the last workshop, so we will be coming back to council early in the new year, and we aim to consult with the community during February, March, or around that time. Thank you.
Given that we've, I believe, finished all the workshops, is there any reason why we need to wait 8 more months? Is there any reason why we couldn't deliver that for public exhibition this side of Christmas?
Did you want to respond to that, Ms. Osman?
Through you, Mayor, as was explained again at the last councillor workshop, we outlined a detailed process about what is required to be done. Curbside and parking strategy is not a document that officers will write in haste. There is a lot of data that we need to analyse. Once we have that document drafted and we have socialised that with councillors, we also did not want to include an engagement period that covered anywhere near the Christmas period, and we believe that February is the best time to come back to council, provide sufficient time for officers to do all the required work that they need to incorporate all the feedback from councillors, and then come back with the document that will be ready for community consultation.
Thank you. Yeah.
If it's through you to CEO, just to make sure that I'm not crossing over governance, are we able to ask if that has a digital component to it in terms of addressing digital parking solutions, which was raised by some of the community members tonight?
CEO?
I'll have to take that on notice, Councillor. It's fine to ask the question. I just don't know the answer. I'm also cognizant of the fact that this motion is slightly different to the questions and the policy that you're talking to. So
you're taking that on notice?
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll go back to the moving of the motion. Councillor Aston, you've got 3 minutes starting now.
Parking is a precious resource in the city of Yarra. Many of us know this, particularly in some places more than others, and there is a difference between commercial centres and activity centres and residential parking, and it's important to keep those kinds of things in mind about where we might look to make revenue versus where we want to preference residents and the like. So for as long as I've been councillor, I've received heaps of complaints about parking in the Vic Park area, and so I know that those complaints have gone to the enforcement area and to the city and sustainability area that's responsible for these kinds of policies. And so there's been many reports of parking concerns in the Vic Park area, but what we have here is an understanding of the problem, but the wrong prescription of solution. And so what we've got here is an opportunity to look at the community feedback. And yes, maybe this could have been done prior to the budget, and it wasn't. However, we now have an opportunity to look at the feedback that we've received from the community, to look at what kind of alternative options there are to help solve the parking problems that have been reported within the Victoria Park precinct. and identify something that works with residents instead of against them. In terms of I just want to address one of the comments there around conducting or essentially doing trials for parking reform. We do have the parking and curbside strategy coming, and that is an attempt to actually, significantly reform parking across the city. Doing random trials without clear clarity of what we're trying to achieve and the problem we're trying to solve, and imposing that on residents isn't any way to resolve this kind of solution, resolve this kind of problem. So I encourage my fellow residents, my fellow councillors, my residents around the table, to support this motion to help us look at how do we better solve the problems of parking around Victoria Park in a way that works with residents instead of against them.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Harrison.
So thank you, Councillor Aston, for preparing this, and thank you to the officers who have done work on this to try and find potential solutions for parking issues. I think in both of these areas we've already heard the mention of Vic Park, but also Madden Grove. The Australia Post building has imposed a significant problem on that area, and officers have taken various steps to try and improve the situation there, increased enforcement, greater restrictions. This is the latest step in trying to find some solution to this problem. I'm very keen to hear from residents about their experiences once it has been implemented. I think it commenced about a week or 2 weeks ago. This review that's been requested within 3 months of the implementation will provide an opportunity to revisit this. I absolutely encourage residents to provide feedback. I'm sure I'll be getting plenty of feedback at the meeting with the community members tomorrow evening, but I absolutely am keen to receive emails, telephone feedback, any other option, so that we have a clear picture of what the impact of these changes are, and so that appropriate tweaks can be considered if things aren't working there. So that's the whole intention behind this in terms of the second point here, is to review this within 3 months, and I encourage all residents, visitors to this area to provide their feedback. There are no easy solutions, but we definitely want to hear about what your experiences are and how you think we might be able to address the issues in the Burnley pocket with parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this matter? Councillor Davies.
Yeah, look, I think obviously things need to be addressed. This did come from a budget that I didn't support. This was one of the reasons I didn't support the budget. It's not to say that there was a lot of good things about that budget, but there were some things like this which I don't think took the necessary steps of having broader engagement. I asked for a further review of the budget out in the public domain, which was not supported by the majority of councillors. That being said, it's good to see that the councillors here today are addressing it, getting down to the coalface and speaking with people. I think it's a lesson for the council group that you have to engage with the community on parking in particular. It's our biggest issue, single biggest issue in the city of Yarra. It needs to be addressed, just as the curbside parking review needs to be addressed and should have been delivered this year, and I apologise as a councillor of City of Yarra that we haven't done that yet, and we should have. The fact that it's going to be delivered next year, in my mind, is just not good enough, and that's on me and on every councillor sitting here today. We need to do better. We need to deliver a progressive, up-to-date system that delivers a new revenue model, that gives security of mind to community members that they can park out the front of their house, that we can give security to mind that when we've got big games at the MCG, that people aren't flooding our streets with cars. We need to deliver that because we promised it. We promised parking reform, and we're almost 2 years in, and we haven't delivered that yet. It's a big task, but it should have been done sooner. But I'm glad to see that my fellow councillors are taking it on the chin and pushing forward with direct consultation. At least this is a good learning point, and hopefully it leads to great engagement with our community for a parking solution in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I'll go next. Councillor Davies didn't really talk to the motion, but I let him talk because I think we need to hear what he had to say. Councillor Davies said he voted against the motion, against the budget. He wasn't even here at the meeting when we voted on the budget. He wasn't at the meeting. He talks about the council needing to talk to the community. Councillor Gomez and myself, all the councillors here, not Councillor Davies, every single week have meetings with dozens and dozens of residents in this city.
Point of order.
Unlike you,
Point of
who
order.
don't come
Point
to
of order.
meetings. You're
Point of
actually
order.
semi-retired.
Point of order.
Semi-retired.
Point of order, you don't know what I do, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what you do. That's quite correct. That is quite correct. Let's agree on that.
Excuse me, point of
order. We do
order.
not know what you do. There is no point of order.
There is a point of order.
I'm saying that you were not at the council meeting.
You need to address my point of order.
Well, what is your point of order?
My point of order is you're making an accusation that is false. You don't know what I do.
You were at the council meeting when we voted on the budget.
No, you made an accusation that I don't do anything. You are suggesting that I am not performing my role as councillor, Mayor, with great respect.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. You are the worst councillor we've had in 25 years.
I deserve an apology for that
No, there's
statement.
no apology coming from me. You lied to this meeting. You said you voted against the budget and you weren't even here.
So you're calling me a liar?
You weren't even here.
Are you calling me a liar, Mayor?
Yes, I am on that instance.
Can you please put that on the record, Phil,
Were you at the
Head of
council meeting
Governance,
when we
please?
voted on the budget?
Thank you.
Were you at the council meeting?
Sorry, excuse me, but that is a code of conduct. That's a breach of code of conduct, Mayor, for calling me a liar. Well, I'm sorry.
None of it's true. You were not here. The minutes show you weren't here. And then you told the meeting, I voted against the budget, I'm this, I'm that. The superpower of this council is its relationship to the community. When we make a mistake in the budget, we fix it. Over the last 2 Sundays, myself, Councillor Gomez, Councillor Aston, and other councillors had 2 massive meetings with the Victoria Park residents. They said they didn't like this issue in relation to the parking on Lully Street, on Bath Street, on Abbott Street, and on Turner Street. And what did we do? We've come back here and we fixed it. Like we did on Elizabeth Street, like we did on Kent Street, like we did on Wellington Street, like we did on many, many other streets, and possibly tomorrow night when we go and meet Mark and his colleagues and the other residents down there. We make no apologies about it. There are some people in the community who, no matter what we do, their motivation is to oppose this council. So if we had said, for example, put paid parking in Victoria Street, they'd say that's a terrible idea. If we said, don't put paid parking in Victoria Street, they would say that's a bad idea. That is their motivation. It's not about policy. It's about disagreeing with this council. And that's fine. It's a free country. I've got no problem with that. But we can't be worried about that. We made a mistake, I think, with Victoria Park. This motion is about fixing it. And that's why anyone who's at those meetings will know that the vast majority of the people in Vic Park are absolutely stoked with this notice of motion. Absolutely stoked. The photographs showed for yourselves. Go down there and talk to the residents. So I'm really, really glad that the councillors or Councillor Aston and Deputy Mayor Harrison have moved this motion, and I think it's going to be passed, and the people of Victoria Park will maintain their strong and warm relationship with this council because we listen. We don't think we're infallible. Everyone makes mistakes, including this council. But when we make the mistake, we try to fix it. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter?
Yeah, I would just like to add.
You've already spoken.
No, I do. I just want to add an apology to the point.
You can't speak twice.
Is that
okay? You can't speak twice.
CEO?
Surely you know that. Is there anyone else that hasn't spoken that would like to speak? Who would exercise your right of reply? Good point. All right, all those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Councillor Davies, Councillor Gomez, Councillor Ho, Jolly, Deputy Mayor Harrison, Councillor Aston, that is passed unanimously. We now go to, yes, very good. Notice of motion 8.3, Victoria Street. We've got quite a few registrations. We'll start with Herschel Landis.
Thank you. Victoria Street Fire Governance Submission, Mayor and Councillors. First responsibility of this council is to govern those matters that fall within its statutory responsibilities and to act in the best interest of the municipal community. Like everybody in this chamber, I am deeply saddened by the devastation on Victoria Street. My thoughts are with the businesses, the owners, the employees, residents and property owners whose lives have been upturned upside down by what has been alleged to be an act of organised criminal violence. Council certainly has a role to provide the necessary support and advocacy. Unfortunately, I believe this motion misses an opportunity to focus on matters that are actually within Council's responsibility. Instead, it broadens into issues that are largely outside Council's authority: organised crime, policing, CCTV, and once again, the medically supervised injecting room. I struggle to see the relevance of including the EMSA in this motion. As far as I'm aware, no evidence has been presented linking the facility to this incident, including it distracts Council from the questions properly before it while continuing the unnecessary stigmatisation of North Richmond. The subdivision documents show this was not one building under a single owner. It is an owners' corporation comprising of 10 separately titled commercial lots created under a planner subdivision approved by the City of Yarra in 1995. It has been alleged that the attack began in Unit 10, yet the consequences appear to have spread across almost the entire development, devastating multiple innocent businesses and property owners. I'm not suggesting Council is responsible for the alleged criminal act, nor am I suggesting anyone failed to comply with the building standards that applied at the time. However, Council has a legitimate interest in understanding how a fire reportedly originated in one tenancy was able to affect so many neighbouring businesses. And that is a question squarely within Council's municipal responsibilities. Council should be asking the municipal building surveyor, in consultation with Fire Rescue Victoria, what lessons can be learned. Does this incident expose broader resilience issues in other developments across Yarra and other similar strata title properties where practical measures could reduce the consequence of the comparable event in Yarra? Council cannot solve organised crime or prosecute, but it can learn from significant events. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm speaking on behalf of Streets Alive Yarra. We feel that a key issue for Victoria Street is public safety. And we point out that Jane Jacobs wrote about this in her book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, arguing that a well-used city street is more likely to be safe, while a deserted one is more likely to be unsafe. Just talking about the everyday life of a place, someone walking to a store, a shopkeeper opening for the day, a parent pushing a pram, a neighbour watching from an apartment window, or people heading out for the evening. And these people are what Jacobs calls eyes on the street. And so if we all want our streets to be safe, then one item that Council can act on is to broadly and significantly upzone all properties within the walkable catchment area of Victoria Street. And we feel that change would act to legalise the construction of many more homes, and over the medium term to double or triple the local population, i.e. the number of eyes on the street, and thus improve public safety. We feel that would lift property values and revitalise the precinct. If we look at a walkable catchment area 800 metres north or south of Victoria Street, that area is similar to the Hoddle grid. And upzoning and building on that area could support a population equivalent to that in the CBD, which has thriving activity across all hours of the day. And we look at the Hoddle grid with 54,000 residents.
30 seconds.
And if Victoria Street had a similar population base, we suggest that local businesses would have a thriving, vibrant future with many repeat patronage from local residents. So we encourage Council to take up this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Karen Hovenga.
Hi, I'm Karen Hovenga and I live in North Richmond. I was really pleased to see that you had councillors had a notice of motion to support the Victoria Street traders impacted by the recent fire. It's really important that Council provides what support they can for this terrible situation and support the community who are impacted by it. However, put simply, I find the inclusion of references to the EMSA in this motion personally offensive to my home and to my community. This is a place where I live, and this is a really important part of what makes the place that I live in the way it is now. Support for the traders is just too important an issue to be hijacked by the stigmatisation of people who are homeless or use drugs. And the EMSA is an important health facility which has significantly reduced ambulance call-outs in the area and provides important health measures to members of our community. Finally, I was really disappointed again with the words of our mayor in denigrating North Richmond to the media. This is my home and it's my community, and I work really hard to have it be a place that people are pleased to be a part of. These words and the constant public messaging that North Richmond is dangerous are making the revitalisation of Victoria Street, which we all really want, much harder than it needs to be. You wouldn't describe Swan Street as unsafe, but I certainly wouldn't be walking along Swan Street immediately after the grand final. Those legal drug users are statistically much more likely to cause me a safety issue than anyone on Victoria Street. The focus for this motion should be on support for the community and the traders of North Richmond, and focusing on the EMSA just ruins that. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Ha Nguyen, Victoria Street Business Association. Ha, welcome.
Mayor, Councillor, I'm Ha, the President for Victoria Street Associations. I rise to support this motion. I want to acknowledge our Mayor, Councillor Aston, Councillor Gomick, Councillors Ho and other Councillor, CEO Sue and officials that have been supporting Victoria Street traders. We also acknowledge Small Minister Natalie Suleiman to meet and comfort our Vic traders. For the traders represent, it isn't a procedure, it's a survival. In one night, 10 business lost everything, stock, fit outs, record and incomes. They are family operators. Some of them are over 25 years in business, not a company with reserves. A week without trade is a crisis. A month is an end. To add to this, we got a window damage about 6 of our shops this week. It's like yesterday. This motion matters because it turned the sympathy into action. We want relief, safety, and a path back to trading. I ask Councillor to support that in full and move quickly because every day of delay costs a business that could have recovered, and the Council working for Vic Street's revival as well. Less mean more, and we don't want trader here, and we want them to serve customer, keep our jobs and keep family together, keep the community safe. Today I'm asking Yarra to support Victoria Street. Thank you.
Seconds. Thank you. Is Sally here from Eisman Optical? iSmart Optical, I should say. Welcome, Sally. Just turn that button on, please, when you get there. Just press the button. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sally Nguyen. I'm one of the 10 businesses being affected by the fire last week. It's just one night, wake up and my 27 years of work just gone. It's such a big loss. I lost everything. My staff lost the job. And everyone keep asking me, are you coming back? We're waiting for you. However, are you going to move somewhere? I don't think you should stay here. It's not safe. So what I'm asking is, what can you do to make me feel safe and come back and support and, provide my service to the community? What you do to get the customer confident to come back, because they don't feel like they want to come back to Victoria Street at all. And this is, I don't know what people believe. Seeing the supervisor injecting room come up, I've been there 27 years and I can see how worse it gets going to this stage, because it's collecting all sort of people come for this. And think about if you put that next to your house and you say it's not going to affect me, I don't think so. So put your feeling in that. And also, what the council can do to make the street more inviting, more lighting, I don't know, there are a lot of things. So give us something to believe that we safe to walk on this street. And finally, we do need support, financial support, everything that help us to go back and build a business again. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. James Singer, Pura King Hawkers. It was on. Yep, now that's good.
Okay. Dear Mayor and councillors, I'm James. I've been running the business there coming to 9 years with a Singaporean food restaurants. So it's really, really painful when I saw my shop was destroyed, and it just couldn't start the business again. And I really need the council and the government to help up to restart at this stage, because like last night, in the middle of the night, my wife waked me up, say, honey, we got the bill to pay, so what's happening now? It's just 1 week, we lost our cash flow, which is our daily income. Then we have the insurance, the health insurance to pay, and we have rent to pay. And I really need the support for us to get out and run again, and the confidence to build our livelihood for my family again, for another business. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Knock from Nails Hair and Beauty.
I'm going to translate, so she's going to speak Vietnamese.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người tối hôm nay. Xin chào. Tôi tên là Ngọc Phạm. Tôi đang sống ở Bled. Nhà tôi là người mẹ đơn thân, nuôi 3 đứa con. Tôi ở Richmond này là 20 năm rồi. Rồi tôi làm cái business này là 8 năm. Rồi, tôi ở đây 20 năm mà tôi thấy những cái con đường này nó rất là nhiều cái sự thay đổi. Tôi đã cố gắng, tôi có tất cả những cái gì tôi đã dồn vô hết cái business của tôi. Sau một đêm nó đã cháy hết rồi, nó không còn gì hết. Bây giờ khi tôi ở đây tôi cảm thấy giống như con đường Victoria này nó đã đi xuống quá nhiều, nó không có còn an toàn nữa. Rồi cái nơi ở của tôi nó cũng không có an toàn nữa. Tôi tôi xin nói.
My name is Ngọc Pham. I'm a single mother. I have 3 children. I've been in Richmond for 20 years now. I've run this nail salon now for the past 8 years, and I've seen the changes in the area. It's Victoria Streets. It's not the same as it was the last 20 years. I'd like to see change, positive change, to help the area grow again and Victoria to be more vibrant again.
Nói giống như cô muốn cố gắng cái con đường cho nó trở lại.
She'd like to see the street return back to what it was 20 years ago.
Giống như những cái cảm giác mà bây giờ nó ở đây, giống như nó không có còn được an toàn nữa.
She doesn't feel no longer safe on Victoria Street or running a business on the street It's no longer a safe place for a family.
Dạ, rồi cái nơi ở của chị nó cũng không có an toàn nữa.
Currently, where she lives as well in North Richmond is no longer safe. Her son was chased by someone recently who is a probably I guess a colourful character.
Giống như mong cho mọi người giúp cho tất cả những cái business nó trở lại như thường.
Yeah, she'd like the support of council so that businesses can return after this devastating situation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Christine Maynard.
Okay, so we've got lots to unpack here. What really annoys me the most is the person that is the Labor representative for the state MP has left the building. But in actual fact, there's a councillor that was at the meeting, or her opening on the weekend, which really annoys me to no nth degree. So here we are, myself and particularly a group of my very close friends have done everything we can for Victoria Street, and I'm really disappointed in that councillor that he would go to a Labor person, and that's the end of...
Christine, you can't, just talk about what you want to talk
Yeah,
about.
so we can hear from people who are experiencing the unsafe issue, but my son's best friend's family lost their restaurant in Victoria Street a few years ago that they'd been there for 23 years, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, and lost everything, and I'm devastated that this fire is actually just down from there. But the MSIR, Mayor Jolly and I were on ABC radio the other day, and this is the time to get the $3 million back that this council is owed from this government. This government's going to give us nothing. So I've asked and asked and asked, and this $3 million could go a long way to the people sitting behind me to get their lives back, to pay their bills. And we're talking about e-scooters. So this council continues to fund things that have nothing to do with this council. And as a ratepayer times two, I feel very strongly about this $3 million. And when are we actually going to do something about it? Instead of talking about it, do something about it. You know, I mean, you've been here nearly 2 years.
Got 10 seconds.
And not one person has got any of that $3 million back. So bring on November where we can vote this Labor government out. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and everyone. My name is Peter. I'm from Victoria Street Business. Last Monday, our office was destroyed in fire bombing. We have been operate as a tax agent on Victoria Street since 1999. Over 2 decades serving local family and small business. Just overnight, we lost our premises, our system, our ability to operate. So this has happened at the worst time. July, August is our busiest tax season. So our client depend on us to now for their personal tax return batch and urgent ATO matter. You might think we can just move everything online, but many of our clients, because we since operate in 1999, so most of my clients are elderly, so they're not confident with the technology. They rely on the face-to-face help, so they can't just simply sign the document online. So they like to face-to-face. So we are the owner-occupiers, so even though we can't trade, we're still paying the interest on the mortgage and all the outgoings. So there's no income coming in, so financial pressure on us. So next 6 months are critical, so we still have staff and client obligation. So no working office for us. So, and even worse if the building is demolishing. So we couldn't out for like extended periods. So our ask is very simple. We need immediately financial assistance. So a emergency fund or just kind of rent relief. So we can relocate into a vacant shop. The whole like 20 to half of the shop is vacant now. So if we can take an opportunity to move in, so it will be great for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Austin, it's your motion. You've got a seconder, Deputy Mayor Harrison, I believe. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ho. I do apologise. You've got 3 minutes to speak to your motion, starting now.
Okay. I love Victoria Street. It's part of the reason why I've been driving for the Victoria Street Revitalisation Project so hard. This firebombing was a massive kick in the guts for everybody who loves that street, for the people who lost their businesses, for the people who shop there, for the people who are so connected to that street. This this notice of motion, it's simply an advocacy piece, right? I'm not going to put things in here that we are already doing. I'm not going to put things in here that we've already got the operational authority to do, right? This is really just trying to call on the government, not to politicise things, but simply to say, give us some help. We've been asking multiple times. We have our advocacy plan, we have the Victoria Street Revitalisation Plan. Much as what we're asking for in here simply mirrors what we're calling for in that, because we know it will help to bring our street back to life. On top of that, we're dealing with a horrible, heartbreaking situation that has destroyed the livelihood of dozens of people. We've heard some of those stories tonight. There are many more of them. There are multiple people who've not just lost their business, but other people who've also lost their jobs, people's employment, people's steady income. This is a heartbreaking situation. And for people to come along and say, oh, we don't like that you've put this in there, big deal. I am never, ever going to apologise for advocating for the things that this street needs to help it come back to life. If you don't like it, that is fine. And I'm sorry, I know I'm getting worked up about this, but this was such a massive kick in the guts to everything that we are trying to do on this street. And I think it's important that as a council, wherever we can advocate, wherever we can step in, wherever we can help, wherever we can drive for improvement for the people who are trying to earn their livelihood along that street and make a contribution to our community, we should do it. So before I run out of time, I also want to say I'm very, very thankful to the officers who've been working so hard to engage with the local community. The fact that we've already stood up the Victoria Street Revitalisation Project, we have staff there, we've been working really hard with the community, getting to know them over the past year and a half, 2 years. Those connections, that infrastructure that we have put in place has been absolutely vital for acting in concert with the Business Association right from the very get-go, to link business owners to support services, to facilitate updates with the police, to provide the learning bank as a place for meetings and conducting business in the meantime, identifying opportunities for relocation and support with necessary paperwork, amongst a whole lot of other things. And so I'm really, really grateful to the CEO, to the general managers and relevant general managers, and to the staff who've been so supportive of the community in what is just a heartbreaking situation. And I hope my fellow councillors will support this.
Thank you. Councillor Ho.
Thank you for everyone coming today. Mostly to those 4 traders been impacted last Monday. I was there at the scene. It's very emotionally touched. As much as I am part of Victoria Street as any before and after, but I have empathy for you. And I understand how hard it is. You lost everything. And it's not easy when you build your foundation for 25 years. This norm is to help you guys in some way, the state, to listen about the hard-working small business in Victoria, and it means the law and order, you know, the firebombing the last week. And yesterday, 4 shop owners being smashed window by anti-social early morning Sunday. Coming to work, you know, see their old front window smashed. Why have to be Victoria Street? Why? Because we are the most place where the crime rate is high. I'm not going to blame it on MSR, whatever, but the perception in the community said that it's unsafe to go Victoria Street. Not because MSR or anti-social behavior, but it's the way that we're putting this perspective, and this state government have to help responsible. That's why they need to help the small business in some way. And I'm supporting SNUM because I understand how hard-working small business impact by this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ho. Would anyone else like to speak on this motion? Councillor Gomez.
I echo the thoughts of everyone spoke from councillors. I'll just make a couple of points. First of all, empathy, and all my condolences to Sally James, Knock and Peter, and all the other businesses, and just as importantly, all the employees that are affected by this tragedy. 10 businesses being knocked out by the lack of control by this state government around an issue is heartbreaking. I want to really point out how closely I've been watching Councillor Ho and Han Nguyen from the Victoria Street Business Association work their asses off to try and get some support from the state government to advocate for all the businesses that are affected, to try and support the businesses who are going through tragedies, and to try and find ways to help them restart their businesses. It has been remarkable to watch these two people work so hard, and anyone who is uncomfortable with any councillor's position politically needs to get off their high horse and understand the actual work that these councillors do. Last point, the state government has let two significant issues fester in this community. It's time that they fixed it. We are sending them the messages of what they need to do. In particular, need to fix those two things and basically help these businesses and this community get back on its feet. I endorse and support Councillor Ho's and Councillor Aston's motion. I ask all my fellow councillors to support it.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this matter? Do you want to exercise your right of reply? Oh, Councillor Davies.
As a business owner, I completely understand the loss that you're feeling right now. I can't imagine what 3 a.m. in the morning is feeling like right now when you're facing your future after building a business for 25 years or more. I can't imagine how difficult that moment is for you right now, even as a business owner, to have that stripped away from you. I think everything else that the other councillors here tonight have said, I am in full agreement with. I do think we need to do more. I think this is obviously, as Councillor Aston said, this is an advocacy document. It can end up just being a bunch of very strongly worded emails and letters, but it is the direction that we obviously, it's a heartfelt support for your community. But I do need to say this, as I said to you in the forum down below, and I will support this motion, even though it is an advocacy document. I think we need to present more action. As I said to you, and I gave you a commitment at the door today. I'm happy to work with you and the other councillors over the next couple of weeks to build a support package, hopefully with the support of other councillors, that helps you with stripping away permits for debris cleanup and waiving all fees for you to be able to get your properties clean and rebuilt, for waiving planning and permitting and those sorts of costs that are going to be prohibitive and slow you down getting your business up and running. I'm here to help. I'm here to help work with other councillors, with other officers to see what we can do. There's always a cost, but you know what? The cost of a permit is nothing because it didn't exist in the first place. It's a virtual cost for us. So I would have liked to see more action here today, but it is very new, it's very fresh. We've got a lot of conversations and we need to really understand what you need, the hard things you need, the hard costs that you're facing right now to get your business back up and running, that a council can pull those levers for, right? Some of these things we can't do anything for, but we can strip permits away at the cost of permits. We can strip those other council costs. We can potentially offer rate paying relief, and I'll be pushing for that and other kinds of support in waivers for your businesses, and I'm here to help, and I'm here to help this week to have that conversation, okay?
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Anyone else like to speak? Would you like to exercise your right of reply? Yep. Yeah, you got 2 minutes.
Great. I think it's worth noting that the things that Councillor Davies was just talking about are already actually in progress. So if Councillor Davies was at the previous workshop, he would have heard that of all the relief things that we're doing, those things are already in progress. So you're very welcome to make use of those
Just a point
services.
of order that when I spoke to them at the front of the forum, not all of those things were visible and
to you.
She communicated to them.
Yeah,
to them.
but that's not a point of order.
Sorry.
All right, just continue. Just ignore it. Just
right.
continue.
So I'm not going to politicise this. I'm not going to talk any more about this notice of motion. What I want to say is to the people who lost their businesses, we want you to stay in Victoria Street. We want you to continue to be part of this community. We want you to continue to earn your livelihood here and to be part of the fabric of the community. Part of the services that the council will work with you on is to help you identify how to do that. And I really, really hope that you do. You've been here for such a long time. You are such an important part of the community fabric, and we want you to stay. So please work with us. Let us work out how to help you stay here, to continue to be part of the community that you've been part of and have served for so long. We are here beside you. We want you to stay, and we want you to be part of the journey of bringing our street back to life. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is passed unanimously. Thank you all for coming for this motion, and yeah, we'll keep discussing with you tomorrow. The next agenda item is petitions and joint letters. We've got three. Two, I think, are from you. Councillor Gomez, do you want to go and tell us what they are? Yeah? I think they're similar, so do you want to do both of them first?
Sure. Yeah. So I have two petitions from the Carlton North community about the Princes Hill Primary School, the Safer Streets for Schools project. I'll read out both preambles. One is containing 41 signatures, asking, we call for a postponement of this project for 6 months. We are seeking better consultation for the residents of the nearby streets to the school, the Princes Hill Public Housing Estate, Redmond Park retirement units, and the North Carlton Railway House Community Centre. We are seeking the opportunity to examine alternatives to the closure of Wilson and Park Streets and the loss of 28 car parking spaces, which will create a significant local impact. The second one is a petition containing 53 signatures from similar residents in the area, saying, we, the undersigned, strongly recommend deferring implementation of the proposal in order to consult the community more effectively and evaluate alternatives. We are concerned that the proposal in its current form is unfair and unbalanced. We are particularly concerned about the loss of 28 parking spaces on the east side of Wilson Street and the removal of our vehicular access to Picton Street via Wilson Street. We also, we also believe that the students, we also believe that the students who travel to school from the north by bike and on foot are already well served by the supervised crossing at Park Street. Thank you.
And that's both of the petitions?
Yep. Okay. Correct.
Yep. Okay, so we
petition as well.
Pass. Accepted and handed over to the appropriate officer for consideration. That's seconded by Councillor Ho. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's passed for both of those. And then we've got a petition from Councillor Ho.
Yes. I have a petition, joint letter, disruption of aquatic class at Richmond Leisure Centre. A petition contains 34 signature requests that council consider looking into the continued disruption to the aquatic class. Thank you. Move.
Seconded by myself. That's we accepted, noted, and referred to the CEO for consideration and response. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Fantastic. Okay, the next agenda item is questions without notice. I've got one, and I'll ask it to the CEO or Mr. Hewitt. And it's after the recent tragedy in Mornington with Nathan Fitzgerald, the cricketer who died on a concrete wicket. And the Age newspaper is suggesting, sorry, sir, there's no time for... yeah, from councillors. Public question time's at the start of the meeting. Sorry, sir. Sorry, this is outrageous. Why is it outrageous? What's wrong?
It's very, very clear in your document. There's one
Just, sir, I'll get the governance manager of governance to respond to your assertion. Mr. Delosa. Take a seat while you're getting the answer.
The section of questions without notice on the agenda is meant for the councillors to ask questions of officers. The opportunity to ask a question from the public is during question time, but we're happy to deal with that tomorrow. If we can get your details later on.
I am going to say, I'm going to use my discretion as mayor, unless the councillors have got a massive disagreement, in this exceptional circumstance, we'll take the question, but we'll just deal with my one first and then we'll go on to your one. But normally, if you've got a question, please come to the public question at the start of the council meeting. Thank you, but sir, let them just deal with this one, my one, and then we'll go to your one. Okay, so about 30, 45 seconds. All right. So my question is in relation to Nathan Fitzgerald. The Age said yesterday we've got 5 concrete wickets, and I was just wondering if we're doing some type of audit on concrete wickets in the city of Yarra, so that we don't have, any issues here. Mr. Hewitt.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, we have. There are 8 multi-use sports grounds in Yarra that have a cricket pitch in the middle. All of those 8, 4 play Aussie rules football during winter, and of those, 2 of them are senior football. All of them are covered with a synthetic top, which meets the AFL standards, and that is largely what most councils do in Victoria. We inspect them regularly. We manage this with some sand around the edges. There are some other single-use sports grounds with no concrete wickets, so there are no risk there. Should there be any further inquiries made by government or the coroner and some recommendations made, then of course the council will comply with those recommendations.
Just to follow up, so are we still using, are there still sports being played in the city of Yarra on pitches, on fields with concrete wickets?
Yes, Mayor, there are, but they are all covered with a synthetic cover during the football season.
All right, thank you. Sir, we'll just come to the front and press the button and just introduce yourself and ask your question, please. Welcome.
My name is Maurice Sheehan. I've been a member of the City of Yarra for 60 years. So I asked this brief question that on Monday the green bin was removed, the glass bin was removed from our place and emptied, and that's great. On Thursday I received a notice saying that the green bin would no longer be done every fortnight, but done every month. I rang straight away, and at 4:30 on Thursday afternoon, within 30 seconds of receiving that notice, I then rang and spoke to May at the Yarra Life number, and I've got to say that she was very, very helpful. So I passed that on. Today, during the afternoon, I received one of the questions that I put was, if you're not picking up the garbage or the glass garbage on every second week, does that reduce my rates? And the answer was that from May that she didn't know. She then passed it on internally and received it today. I received a note saying, due to a contract which started on the 1st of July 2026, I cannot confirm that your household waste charge will be. So I'm raising the question, and you don't have to answer it right now, but I raise the question, if you've reduced the facilities within the council, then are our rates reduced? Can I say, the graffiti that is on Bridge Road, that is on empty stores, on on Victoria Street is appalling, and that is something that hasn't been raised tonight and should be and really needs to be raised. As someone that shops on both Victoria Street and Bridge Road, I abhor the graffiti that's there, and it deters me from shopping in the areas. And then I guess the last point is the point of the explosion on Monday or last week. I think it was Monday night of again on Bridge Road, like Victoria Street, of the tobacco shop. And is the council doing anything to address those issues of tobacco shops that are open? Because as a consumer, as someone that's been there for 60 years, no, there is no apparent action in that place. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Hewitt, did you want to answer that?
Thanks for the questions. I'll try and answer them. In relation, the easiest ones first. Graffiti on Bridge Road, we'll have our team have a look at that tomorrow. Thanks for pointing it out. Just in relation to the bin frequencies, it's true that the purple bin, I think you meant the purple bin, will be collected every 4 weeks rather than 2 weekly. That has produced a saving for all residents. The cost to your rates would have gone up more than they have. I might just parrot the Mayor that the council has sort of withheld, if you like, $3.4 million worth of costs that would have normally gone to ratepayers through the waste charge, and that has been covered by general rates. So that is a saving, a direct saving through the waste charge to ratepayers. Just in relation to tobacco, I think it's a state matter, and I'll perhaps leave that to others to comment on rather than me. Thank you, Mayor.
We've got the CEO on, also wants to answer some of your question. Oh, no? In relation to the last point that you raised about tobacconists being allowed to open without any restriction, it's something that's been raised within the organisation. I've raised it on the media and also with the state government that there needs to be a restriction on their ability to set up shop on shopping strips and shopping centres, because they're putting everyone's life at risk and businesses at risk. But it is a state matter. It's a state legislation, state planning scheme that would have to be tweaked on that, but it is something that we're advocating for at the moment. And thanks for your patience. No worries. Thank you, sir. Okay, so are there any other questions without notice?
Do you mind if I just check up on governance? The question that I asked during public question time at the very start, is that regarded as a question without notice now? The one about bringing the final design of Mayter and Bud Street back to council.
Yeah, you can ask it now. We'll just take it as...
I've already asked it. I'm just wondering for governance whether I need to ask it again.
Mr. Delosa, what do you want? No? No.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Are there any delegates' reports? Are there any general business? Oh, sorry, Councillor Davies, go ahead.
Just in respect to the Vic Street traders, just speaking with them, they are in immediate need of some really basics. And I know there's been a workshop, but they need things 8 days ago. Is there anything that we can do in very quick timing to deliver permits or any kind of immediate relief? Is there anything?
Thank you. Very good question. The CEO.
Thank you for the question. And through you, Mayor, Councillor, I'm actually really proud to announce that we've had staff on site since in the very early hours of last Monday morning, pretty much continuously for the last 9 days. The MBS obviously attended in his capacity as the emergency management responder and has been on site pretty much since then, since last Monday. On Monday afternoon, facilitated by officers, so the same day as the fire, facilitated by officers, the MBS met and spoke with all of the traders. That was then followed by Tuesday, we started up an emergency management committee. On Tuesday afternoon, I briefed the councillors extensively on these activities. I've also been in constant contact with the ward councillors and the Traders Association. I met with HAR last Wednesday together with the general managers. I want to do a shout out to Brooke Colbert and Mary Osman, who've been absolutely instrumental in representing council, in leading the advocacy and support, direct support to the Vic Street traders over the last week. It's been phenomenal. It's a very much a coordinated response. Last Thursday, the team facilitated a meeting with the affected traders that was attended by, at our invitation, the traders, Victoria Police, insurance specialists. There was psychosocial support available, as well as all of our multidisciplinary teams, health, building, planning, economic development. We've already made offers to the traders about refunds, where we've met with Business Victoria. They are standing up a team to work with each of the traders to support them on their needs. The business team, so the Victoria Street team, Wendy Dinning and Eddie, have pretty much on a daily basis met with all of the traders and the Traders Association and the traders more generally, made it very clear that we will provide support for relocations into Victoria Street. I'm very committed to try to support keeping those businesses local. And the work continues. The Learning Bank, it's probably not enough of a list, but the Learning Bank has been open to those businesses so that they can set up and do what they need to do on a temporary basis. So to be honest, Councillor Davies, at the moment, I'm at a bit of a loss to think of what else we could be doing except be informed by the traders whom we are in daily contact with.